is sovereign over everything. He is sovereign over the entire universe. He is sovereign over nature. He literally has created everything that exists out of nothing.
It is the doctrine of sovereign election that empowers and ignites missions, and it is the doctrine of sovereign election that guarantees the success of missions around the world.
We will not build the church according to the changing whims of an ungodly culture. We will change that ungodly culture by the power of the immutable gospel.
All I have is God wrapped himself in flesh, died on a cross, nailed my sin thereto, was placed in the grave, rose again on the third day, ascended to the right hand of the Father, and is there making intercession for me until such time as my salvation is completed and he takes me home.
The more they see, the more they will love him. Stop giving them all this silly fodder and life principles and lay before them. Live your life in solitude, crying out to God. Live your life on your knees. Live your life with your Bibles torn asunder. Live your life for the people of God to be able to present to them the beauty of what he is, the glory of his cross.
There is no such thing as Mother Nature. God rules and reigns over everything. There's not a leaf that falls from a tree that God did not call it to fall at that very moment. God is in control of every single thing, meticulously ruling over the entire universe. Join us for the 2023 G3 National Conference on the Sovereignty of God.
Grace and peace. I'm Oh my goodness. I had no idea there was no sound. Y'all, I am running this live stream by myself. Hubby does not get home till 7 o'clock. No, 7:30. And this was a 6 o'clock stream. So I have no problem starting all over again. Hey y'all, how are you doing? You can hear me now. Y'all can hear me now, right? Y'all can hear. Okay, Nathan's muted. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, why is Nathan talking and I ain't even brought him out yet? Okay, can y'all hear me now? I sure did. I sure did the whole thing muted. It's all good. I can say it again. Grace and peace. Welcome to the Standard of Truth podcast, guys. You know how we do over here. When it is live, I am liable to mess something up. Either it's going to be the audio or something else. But listen, we're here now. We're going to move on. I do have a great show planned for y'all this evening. It's going to be a lively chat. I've already seen some of the discourse from a few individuals who have no problem letting me know how they feel. And as y'all know, I am who I am. And so I have no problem letting you know how I feel. As I was saying, while no one was listening to me, maybe Nathan, I don't know if he can hear me, but it's fine. I do have a meaningful show lined up for you. I need you to like the video, okay? So we can do a little sign language. Like the video, share the video. It helps with the YouTube algorithm to let people know that this content is meaningful to you, and it helps new people to discover some new content. So let's go ahead and get into this. Back the Blue is a statement that I wholeheartedly support. And before you click out and want to label me any sort of pejorative names, I don't care, right? But Back the Blue is a statement that you will proudly hear me proclaim, as I understand that biblically, one of the purposes and roles of government is to restrain the wicked doer, right? They bear the sword, and their whole job is to be an avenger against those who do wrong and to carry out God's wrath. Romans 13 teaches us this. You guys, we must have law and order, right? It is unsustainable for a developed nation to have anarchy and a blatant disregard for the rule of law. Now, because I hold this view, I thought it would be a great idea to actually sit down and talk about policing and law and order and the state of public safety in this country with someone who has actually been in that role. So today I'm going to be joined by a local hero who, through the providence of God, is grateful to just be alive, right? So 4 years ago, while conducting a routine traffic stop of a suspect who was, you know how some of us do, he was texting and driving, which is against the law. Officer Nathan Daley pulled him over, and because texting and driving is against the law, the suspect chose to speed off into traffic with Officer Daly lodged in the window, hanging on for dear life. Officer Daly was unable to free himself and was dragged for a considerable distance with his whole body being slammed against other vehicles, and then eventually was able to break free. But then he found himself flung into traffic with cars on both his left and his right. You guys, I need you to see it for yourself for you to truly understand the weight and the gravity of what happened. Go ahead and take a look.
A Dunwoody police officer is out of the hospital tonight just 36 hours after he was dragged by a car along Interstate 285. Newly released dash cam video shows just how close a call it was for Officer Nathan Daley. And we want to warn you that this is pretty hard to watch here, folks. You can see Officer Daly and a fellow officer talking to the driver. They pulled the person over Ashford Dunwoody Road. That's right at Interstate 285. It happened yesterday. When the car starts to pull away, the Officer Daly, grabs on. Soon he's hanging on for dear life, half in the window, half outside that window as the car speeds down the interstate. The driver guns it onto other cars. The ramp then suddenly swerves, as you can see right there, nearly hitting a van. Officer Daly is hurled into traffic, and the suspect is caught soon after. Now, Dunwoody police say that they originally stopped Derek Simpson for texting and driving. Now he's facing a handful of charges. And tonight, for the very first time, folks, we're getting to see and hear from Officer Daly. Now, it's going to take some time for him to recover, but there is nothing wrong with his funny bone.
It does look as bad as it feels, but you know me, I will bounce back 10 times stronger. Little knick-knack. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. And I accept donations in the form of sweets, cookies, chocolate chip cookies, cupcakes with sprinkles, vanilla, or red velvet.
Wow, we're glad to see that he is doing well, and we want to wish Officer Daly a speedy recovery.
You guys, Officer Daly, now medically retired, stands here today as a living testimony and literally a walking miracle to the power of God to sustain us despite all odds. He is currently the founder and CEO of the Blue Phoenix Initiative, which is a 501c3 that he established to bring awareness to the silent suffering of police officers nationwide. The life-altering, life-changing incident, it inspired Nathan to launch the Blue Phoenix Initiative, which functions to serve other officers that are in need. And he is an ardent supporter of the importance of the relationship between police and the communities they serve. You guys, I need y'all to welcome Mr. Nathan Daley. Hey, Nathan.
Thank you. I love that. I was over there blushing behind the scenes.
Welcome to the show.
You
obviously have some admirers in the live chat. I saw a few people. I actually saw one individual says that she has a crush on you. I have been known to play matchmaker, so if you are in the market and if she is a Jesus-loving woman that meets your needs, I will gladly take the credit for playing Cupid here on the Standard of Truth podcast. I'm so glad
Thank you.
to have you on the show. I've been kind of following you for a while, and I had a few subscribers reach out and say, you need to get Nathan Daley on the show. So first off, I want to say, when you watched that video a few moments ago, I really just want to know. I was hesitant in showing it because I wasn't sure how you would feel about it. But is it difficult to watch? Like, what are some of your thoughts that go through your mind when you see that footage?
Well, before I get into that, I just want to say thank you. It is an honor to be here, and I really appreciate you bringing me on to speak to everyone. And thank you for those who are here today. You know, we're going to have a great conversation. So with that being said, you know, every time it took a lot of work to get to the place where I am now, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And I'm at a place where I've embraced what happened. I understand that it was something that was required for greater work, you know. It was a transformative moment in my life, as you can imagine. So when I see it now, I actually never forget. I still have the pains. I still have the scars. They're constant reminders of that transformation. When I see it, it doesn't hurt, but it's a reminder that life is precious. It's a reminder that, you know, we always say that cliche thing, tomorrow's never promised. That's a fact, you know. I recognize that I only have control over what God allows me to have control over. And at the end of the day, when they say Jesus grabbed the wheel, they mean it. You know what I mean? Like in that moment, I was like, hey, I need you to grab the wheel for real, you know.
Well, you have an amazing sense of humor, because I was like, I don't even want to hear no Jesus grab the wheel jokes. I just, it's too soon, but I guess it's
too
been
soon.
It's been 4 years, so I guess you what I was gonna say is, as I watched you in the latter part of that clip, like still in your hospital gown,
Right.
you were categorized as someone who, despite what you went through, you still had joy and a sense of humor that I cannot say that I honestly would have been able to do.
Mm.
Can you explain to the audience about some of the injuries that you sustained as a result of that altercation? Like, what was that recovery like?
Oh man, yeah. So I think the humor comes from. I think it's all. I've always had a very positive outlook on life. Um, Very strong in prayer. Family is a big part of that. They were there, obviously, at the hospital and leaving, and then I contributed the other half of that to that morphine. Boy, I was shooting. Boy, I was up on that thing. I was hitting that button. I was wearing that button out in the bed.
I done
Uh,
had a morphine drip. I ain't gonna lie.
right?
Listen.
Yeah. It's hey, you be a straight astronaut. I I was wearing the button out. I was in and I didn't feel the pain. The next day is when Lord. The next day is when I felt it. But
Wow.
um the injuries, I had several lacerations on my face, as you could see in the video. I almost lost um I almost lost my eye, my left eye actually. And you probably can't really see the scar. But in the video, I healed up pretty good. The melanin, the melanin bounced back pretty strong, right?
It does.
So I had I had several lacerations over my eye, on the side of my head, on the side of my face here, my lip, lacerations inside, outside of my mouth, around my mouth. I had a lot of road rash, as you can imagine, like being skinned on the top layer. I literally, by the grace of God, I didn't break any bones, but I tore a lot of things. Like I tore muscle, ligaments, tendons. I mean, you can name it, but I didn't break any bones. And so that was the extent of my injuries. I had two surgeries. I had to get a plate in my shoulder. I had to wear that plate for almost a year, and then I had to get a second surgery to get it removed. What's even more crazy is that because of COVID during the time this happened, I got injured right before COVID happened, and so I was out for like 2 years, just recovering physical therapy. I couldn't use my arm. My entire right side of my body was not really operational, and so going through that process, being trapped in the home, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. It was a very depressive process. And not only that, you're being told that your body's not going to be any good for at least about a good 4 to 5 years. So I had other aspirations that I was working on in the moment. Those things ended, as you can imagine. I was in the process of going to the FBI, the application process. So it's like a 2 year process, very extensive. That had to, obviously, I had to end that because I wasn't physically in the condition or mentally in the condition to be able to pursue. Suffering from a lot of nightmares, as you could imagine. I had to go through therapy, which was cool. The therapy was cool. My therapist was always like, "So, what are your plans next week?" I was like, "Man, I'm not gonna harm myself. Trust me. I love myself
Right.
too much. You know." But I was very, very depressed. I was extremely depressed, and I was in a situation where I had a lot of support through my friends from church, my friends outside of church, my coworkers, and my family. I had all the support anyone could ever pray for and need, and I still struggled. And it's always a constant reminder to me that, man, some people don't have it half as good as I have it, and I understand the struggle. I still had to dig myself out, but with that support, I don't know how I would have been able to do it.
Wow. I can't imagine. I mean, it does put you in a position where you're like, I need to be grateful because it could have been worse. I saw some people in
Absolutely.
the comments talking about that van. That van, I'm surprised it did not hit. I don't, it was almost like it was suspended in time, because
Yes.
normally where was it gonna go if there's a whole human in the
Right.
road? So I am grateful that the Lord was gracious to you and had mercy and extended your life so that you could be with us here today. And I do believe that He's uniquely gifted you to kind of speak to so many issues surrounding policing, having spent 13 years in that
Mhm.
career, and having a love of community and wanting to just serve. But now that you're medically, retired, can you tell us a little bit about your organization, the Blue Phoenix?
Yeah. So let me touch on that. And in reference to the van, you're absolutely right. It was a couple days before I saw the video myself. They reached out to me and told me, "Hey, we're gonna release this to the media. The media is asking for this video. We have to release it. But we want to talk to you first." And this is my department telling me, and sharing this with the family and saying that it's going to be tough. And when I saw it for the first time, it was very difficult to watch. It was very difficult to watch for a long time, actually. And but through the process of healing, you get to a place of acceptance. You embrace the things that you cannot control in order to start moving forward. So the story about the nonprofit, the Blue Phoenix Initiative, there's a lot of there's a lot of symbolism in the words and all that. I really sat down and really put a lot of thought into it. I would say YouTube and the organization are probably key in the success of my recovery because it gave me new purpose. It allowed me to reconstruct my purpose and rebirth it into something new. And so, how did it happen? So, one day, I had my boot, my boot. I was still in my sling. I still had a lot of discoloration in my face from the injuries. I still had the sutures in and things like that, but I had the white pink marks on my face. The color didn't bounce back yet. So one day I was just kind of real fed up. I wanted something different to eat. I went to go to this burger place that wasn't too far. That I really liked their food. I went there. I had the wrap around my face and all that kind of stuff. I was bandaged up. My beard was growing out because I couldn't shave because of all the lacerations on my face. So the hair was growing out. I was looking a hot mess. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. I know it may seem like I'm handsome, but I'm telling you, I was looking crazy. I was looking crazy.
You was
Now,
busted that day.
I was busted for about a year. I was busted bad.
Oh.
I didn't even know the beard would look. This is the first time growing out the beard, and the beard just happened to look good. And I was like, oh, damn, I might keep this. So I was at this burger place, and I was looking like a homeless person, and this young kid comes up to me while I'm in line waiting on my food, and he said to me, um, uh, thank you for your service." And I'm looking at him like, what is this? What is this little clown talking about? Sir, thank you for your service. I'm like, service? What are you talking about? He said, yeah, you're a superhero. I was like, superhero? And I'm looking at him, and I look up and I'm like, where's this kid's parents at? And I see his mother. His mother comes, "Oh, sir, sorry, we didn't mean to bother you, but just wanted to say I'm happy that you're okay. Thank you for your service, and we support you, right?" Like that's just kind of like the theme. And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, Officer Daly, And I was like, "Oh," in a moment I forgot, right? I was so saturated in my depression that I forgot who I was. You know what I mean? Like, and the fact that they recognized me, I was shocked. I was still in disbelief. And the lady told me that they were actually on the highway when the incident happened, right? So they actually were like a part of that. And on the highway, which a lot of people don't know, it's a little piece of the story I'll tell you, I haven't shared with anybody. The guy in the white van and others, they got out their car to stop traffic when the incident happened. The guy in the van, he was the one who gave me a towel, is what they used to help clean up the blood. I was bleeding really bad. And, I didn't know. I haven't even met him to this day, actually. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I want to meet this guy and really just thank him. I never had an opportunity to just thank him. And so I'm having this conversation with this young lady and her son. And, I'm still kind of in disbelief because, I feel very low. And I tell the young man, I said, hey, well, thank you, I appreciate it. I said, but I'm not a hero, And he said, yeah. He said, you're a hero, you're a superhero. And in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm about to hit this little kid. Like, what is he talking about? I said, why do you keep calling me a superhero? And he looked me in the eye and he said, well, only a superhero can be hit by cars and get up and walk again. And when he said that, it was like this, it shook me in a way. And I was so in disbelief, and I said, okay. I said, thank you. And it was just on my mind. I got my food. They said, have a good one, and get well and things like that. And I got home. When I got home, I broke down in tears. That was the moment. That was the moment that shook me. I decided to what I was doing to try to help myself throughout each and every day recover. People were sending me, you heard the speech I gave, oh, cookies and cupcakes, Skittles. I was like, give me all this. Well, people answered that call and they sent hundreds of goodies to me. I put on a lot of weight, as you can imagine. I ate everything.
Whoa.
I was tearing it up. I was eating everything because I wanted to just show my appreciation for people answering that call. I didn't think that as a police officer that what I did mattered. I didn't think people really cared like that. You see what happens on the media, you hear what people say. I just was always in a belief that this was a thankless job. No one really appreciated our sacrifice. And to see the whole country, right, come together, mobilize on my behalf, I felt very loved. And so I would open up one card a day. I had a lot of cards. I had a stack of cards. I would open one card a day. That's kind of how I was feeding myself, right? Emotionally and psychologically. I was feeding myself that way. That day I came back from the burger place, I said to myself that, what did this kid see in me that I've forgotten about myself? What did he see? The timing was impeccable. I looked in the mirror. I didn't like the person I was looking at. I decided that day I was going to open up all the cards. I was going to use these things as a crutch to make myself feel better, in the moment. I was going to stop feeling sorry for myself about what happened. And I understood that I needed to come to some level of forgiveness, right? On the suspect who did this to me. And I opened up all the gifts. I came across a box and I was like, man, I need to open this box. I've been holding on to this box for a while. Might have been some cookies in there. Might go spoiled, right? So I opened up the box.
All the time.
Yeah. Inside the box was a hand knitted blanket. It was from a nonprofit organization called Covering the Blue. And the knitted blanket was the police blue line. So it's the thin blue line on it for those who are familiar with it. And there was a letter in there, and the letter read, dear Officer Daly, we saw what happened to you. My name is so and so from this organization. We hand make these quilts for police officers who've been injured and are suffering. And this blanket will keep you strong. In your moments of weakness, use this blanket to cover you. And as I was reading it, obviously, I'm just crying and stuff. And I took the blanket and I covered myself with it. And there was like there's like this sense of relief, It felt like the burden that I was saturating myself in was no longer a thing. In that moment, I felt truly blessed to be alive. I almost forgot of what I should be grateful for. I took that moment to throw on some Marvin Sapp, never would have made it. Right, started playing that.
Right.
And, I just got into the zone, started praying, asking God to walk me through this process. And I needed something new. And it dawned on me, I said, that nonprofit, that one act of kindness and the act of kindness of the other people is what helped fuel my recovery. And I said to myself that I want to create something that will help other officers overcome, triumph over these tragedies. And I cracked open the Bible and I got to reading. I came across a scripture, Genesis 50:20. And that is the foundation of what the organization is built off of. And in Genesis 50:20, for those who are not familiar with the exact scripture, the scripture reads that the enemy has meant harm or evil against me, but God will take that and use it for good, for the betterment of others. And so that's the pillar that I rebuilt myself off of. And to me, that is how the organization has spawned. I came up with the name Phoenix because on that day, that incident, August 1st, 2019, I feel like that was a day that I was reborn. I felt like the old me died on that asphalt. And what came out of that was a new man with a new purpose, a new vision. I believe that these 13 years of policing was almost like God's way of saying, this is on the job training for the real job I need you to do after the fact, right? And that's how I started to understand that it wasn't that I was meant to be an officer. I was meant to perform, have these experiences so I can take that and do this work that I'm doing now. I see it now. It's more clear now. And in the moment, we can't see that process. I like, forgot the name of this pastor off the top of my head, but he broke it down perfectly. He talked about the process of being a grape and then becoming wine.
A Dunwoody police officer is out of the hospital tonight, just 30.
Don't
No.
take me to mine. It's live. I'm trying to
Listen,
remind people. She said like the video. I'm like, ooh, let's press the like button, and not realizing the way my
No,
stream deck is set up. Don't even worry about it.
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
No, you're fine. I think the process. I think you know grapes becoming wine. We all love wine, but before you're wine, you're a grape, and to become wine, you have to be crushed, right? And there's a process, and so I think understanding that, accepting that in order to become this, you have to go through this, and accepting that has made it possible for me to move forward. In a sense, it's like that saying that everybody want to go to heaven, but nobody want to die to get there, right? It's like that type of idea, right? So that's how the nonprofit came about, and the whole idea was to recreate the same blessings that I received and provide those things for officers as well. Because the only reason why it went viral and people knew about it was because of that video. The question is, well, there's thousands of officers, approximately 17,000 officers are injured in the line of duty, and you never hear about it. So what is their recovery like? Do they have support? Do they have support of the people? Do they have support from their family? Some officers, you guys, they're not faith-based individuals, right? Some of them are like, they believe in the moon and the stars, or some just believe in themselves. So, and that's okay. But the idea is that is a pillar of support that they do not have. And so that is the purpose. That's why I started the organization.
Awesome. I think that's an amazing initiative. And I honestly, toward the end of the show, I want to allow my audience an opportunity so if they want to learn more about the Blue Phoenix Initiative or how they can support you in that effort, I want to at least make some time to give you the opportunity to tell people how they can do that. But before we
Thank you.
go there's this huge elephant in the room that I personally would like to discuss. And I think it's a good place to start the kickoff of our conversation.
Okay.
This is the Stand on the Truth podcast. And, my goal is to not shy away from talking about difficult or controversial topics. I know some people, everybody want to direct how you do your content as if all you do is sit in this room all day and create videos just for them. I create content for them, but I can't cover every single thing all the time.
Right.
However, the mugshot of the individual who is
Hmm.
responsible for your injuries, that individual happened to look like you. And
Correct.
that was the picture of he looked relatively young Black man. If I'm
Hmm.
understanding it correctly, he was pulled over simply because he was texting and driving, and that became codified into Georgia law a couple of years ago. So
Right.
what I want to know is some of the rhetoric surrounding policing is this idea that Black people are unjustly targeted by racist cops, and that the police, along with white supremacy, are like in our top two or three of greatest threats to the Black community in this country. So I guess my question is, do you agree with that sentiment? Because in this circumstance, highly melanated cop, highly melanated suspect.
Right.
Um, it doesn't matter that it was like, oh, he's only texting. Your job, according to Romans 13, is to be an avenger. You carry the sword, i.e., your firearm, your taser, whatever it is that you guys are using these days to restrain the lawbreaker. But you are a representative, whether members of the police force acknowledge it or not. Government was established, and police officers represent that aspect of government to function in that role. Do you believe that the threat, the main threat to Black
Hmm.
Americans in this country, are police?
Um, absolutely not. Um, unequivocally, no. Right? It's the police are not. Unfortunately, just to be honest, to be completely honest, I have a saying on my channel where we do facts over feelings, and it's to spearhead a new ideology that we need to be okay with hearing the truth, even if it hurts our feelings. You may not like what I have to say, but you need to hear what I have to say. And so, what is the reality? The reality is you're unfortunately more likely to perish by the hands of someone who looks like you and not the police. In fact, you're more likely to be saved by the police if someone is threatening your life. To be quite honest, unfortunately, the media and a lot of bad faith Black activists have gone out their way to create a false narrative and way of fear mongering and weaponizing their political position, weaponizing police and racism as a way to push a political narrative or push a political agenda. And unfortunately, they use the police to do it. They use racism to do it. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't take the time to do our own research, and we fall for the propaganda. We have a lot of soothsayers in our community. We have a lot of people who are word wizards, literally, and they cast spells of ignorance across our community. And
Come on
when
now.
you
Come on, bro.
when, when you decide to be someone who speaks truth to their lies, you're then targeted as, a sellout, or you're targeted as a coon. They use insult as a way to deflect from the truth because they want to keep you brainwashed. So, what is the reality? Now, and I say that to say this doesn't take away from the idea or the reality that there are racist people operating in uniform or within the criminal justice system. That's a fact. The problem with our community, though, is that we have a hard time distinguishing between a white officer that's unprofessional versus a white officer that's a racist. We lack the ability to discern between the two. There are some cases where you have a white officer who's just bad at their job. You have some cases where there's a white officer that's just I don't want to curse, just an
Yeah, please
a-hole.
no. Church
Yeah, let
folks,
me yeah,
we be
let
struggling.
me so who's just an a-hole, right? And we all know that. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is that when we encounter a white officer who is disrespectful to us, we assign that disrespect as racism. Oh, he's racist. No, he just doesn't care, right? Like he just doesn't. So, and I get it. I get it. I get it. I think we've been too cavalier with the word racist. So I try to encourage new phrases to help us walk through these things. What you're seeing from a lot of people who aren't black and they're in this profession is that it's not that they're not racist. They are I'll say this. One of the things that I've noticed from being in this profession is that I can do the exact same thing to a black person as an officer. I could say it the same way. Get your A out the car right now, right? I could throw these handcuffs on you just as quick or whatever I might do. And you might just say, oh, I was rude, I was unprofessional, I'm an a-hole, right? That's what you would label me as. If a white officer does the exact same thing, they're a racist for it. And what ends up happening is not that a lot of white officers are racist. What tends to happen is that they're actually racially insensitive, right? There's a huge difference. And so that's the term that I talk to my channel about and say, no, they're not racist, they're racially insensitive. Why do I know that? Because I would have done the exact same thing he did or she did. Not only that,
Okay,
I've
hold
seen this.
on. When you
Mhm.
say, I'm big on definitions,
Okay.
and I need you to parse out for us, what do you mean by racially insensitive? Like, define it as best as you can, because I want to engage with that.
Okay. So when I say racially insensitive, meaning that you'll have a person who is not concerned about any cultural, ethnic, historical meanings as it relates to the relationship between police officers and the black community. They look at things plainly as they see it. You're doing something they ask you to do, you're doing something that you're not doing something that they ask you to do. You're in violation of some type of law or crime. They don't really care for the talk back. They don't care about 400 years ago. They don't care about the civil rights movement. You're in violation. I asked you to do something. I expect you to do it. So when you are insensitive to the historical settings and the historical relationship, one could argue that you shouldn't be, you should be. I mean, that's a debate, right? The reality is if you're wrong, you're wrong. We could talk about the lack of sensitivity as it relates to those historical relationships. Some don't have it. Some go into a situation, they get in contact with black people, and they could care less, you guys. Does that make them bad? No, not necessarily. Does it speak to the professionalism or their ability to connect? Yeah, absolutely it does, which is why it's important that we need more people who look like us in this profession who understand the dynamics and the intricacies of the relationship. The problem is that we actually, to our own detriment, we discourage black people from being in the profession by insulting them, by calling them sellouts, by calling them coons, by calling them Uncle Toms, by calling them traitors, by calling them Sambos. So what ends up happening, I know a lot of black people, they reach out to me all the time, email, social media. They say, hey, Officer Daly, I wanted to be an officer, but I see how they treat you on YouTube and you're trying to help. I see the things they say to you. They call you a pig. They call you a sellout. How do you navigate when you just want to help your community? How do you do it when the same people you're trying to help are the same ones who are pushing against that help and complaining? My thing is, you can't complain about what white people are doing and then turn around and beg them to do the job for you. That's not how it works. That's not how power works. And when you think about it, we laugh and say, well, there's white supremacists and racist people and gangs and drug dealers who signed up to be police officers. Everybody and their mama want to do the job except for black people. And the reality is everyone recognizes that this is a position of power. And this goes for anything within the criminal justice system. We're absent in our performance in it. There's more black people that go through the courtrooms as defendants than there are black people in the courtrooms as attorneys and judges. And then we wonder why there's nobody overseeing the process. It's not systemic racism. It's the absence of black faces is the problem. You can't complain about what white people are doing and then turn around and beg them to do the job. It just doesn't work that way.
This is an interesting discussion because I had no idea that would be the perspective that you would present to us today. And so I'm like, okay, I want to engage with that because on some level I can see that. Like, okay, let's just use as an example, black person, I'm in the car, I know I'm speeding, I get pulled over, white cop comes over, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and this is weird, but I'm going to say it, and I need you to help me as the professional, having been on this side, to help hold my hand so that I can get closer to where you are.
All right.
I struggle with that only because I'm like, my personal opinion is that black people we're not juveniles that need to be handled with kid gloves. And I think that why do we have to concede and say that a white officer needs to be more ethnically sensitive when we're all image bearers? We're just like human. Like, we're just human. Like, I'm not a different kind of human than my white or Asian counterparts. And I heard what you were saying when you're like, well, some of these cops think, like, if you break the law, you break the law. They're going to treat everybody the same. Why
Correct.
is it that we want these police officers who are doing their job to extend this extra layer of grace and tiptoe when in this kind of job, you have to think quickly, you have to make split-second decisions? Why do they have to look through the lens of ethnicity in order to do their job well? Why can't they treat everyone the same? And I'm legitimately asking
No, it's
them
a good question.
because I understand that the new racial dynamic climate in this country, I'm saying it's new because I grew up in Rudy Giuliani's New York City, right? Like,
Oh,
so
okay.
I seen, my peers being thrown up against the police car because they were doing something wrong. And not one
Correct.
time did I ever think that was happening to them because they were black. I literally did not see the world through those lenses. I grew up around a bunch of blacks, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, everybody. You was either black or Hispanic. I didn't grow up around a lot of white people, right? And our police force was very diverse. And every time I would see somebody on the block get hemmed up, not one time did I believe that they were being hemmed up because they were black. And this was me growing up in liberal blue New York City with my democratic blue self. My 13-year-old liberal feminist leaning worldview didn't even think like that. I was just like, yeah, Mike and them, the block was hot, they got hemmed up. It wasn't like, oh,
Right.
because you're
Right.
like, I didn't think like that. But now everyone seems to, their default view is, oh, he was harsh to Mike because Mike is black. And I'm like, really? Is that where we are? So I guess the question is, why do I don't know how
I know what you
sustainable
mean.
it. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
are we that? Uh, like I would hate for police forces around the country in an effort to overcorrect because of some bad apples to start treating me like I'm some imbecile that
Right.
doesn't have the capacity to reason, and they gotta be like, okay, well, because that puts the police officer in a vulnerable position. I can take advantage of
Absolutely.
that and do what happened to you and speed off, and he's stuck in the window of the car.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, let me tell you, there's a couple things. Let me ask you this. Growing
Yeah.
up, cowboys and Indians, who were the bad guys?
I'm a girl. I don't remember. I played cops and robbers, but not
All right.
cowboys and Indians.
All right. So, we live in a country where media and influence runs the game. If you control the mind, you control the body.
Right.
Black people are victims of psychological warfare, and we do not want to free ourselves. So to your point, I grew up thinking that the Indians were the bad guys. It was the cowboys.
Mm.
And and I think that in this situation, what you're arguing is absolutely correct. You have educated black people with degrees of all kinds who, when they get pulled over, they fear for their life. And they got pulled over for running a stop sign. And they think that the police, there's a likelihood they can die from a police encounter. Where does that come from? The dangers of fear mongering. The people that we trust the most in our community, unfortunately, these word wizards, these black activists, the media, sometimes the highest levels of government, our president, our vice president, they are telling you to be afraid of the police. They are telling you that you are 5 times, 10 times most likely to be killed by the police officer. And as a black person, you should fear the cops and so forth and so on. They use this technique called social math, which is where they try to embellish data to fit their narrative in order to get a particular outcome. At the end of the day, perception is reality. Even when you can look at a situation and say, that is not accurate, it's not true.
Right.
The police officers are not dangerous to black people. When you hear some people talk, us in our community, some of us are so emotionally lost that we are easily manipulated. And I always say this, when emotions are high, logic is low. And just the whole idea that we are able to move a sea of black people by tickling their emotional string chords. That's it. That's it. And we will open up our wallets. We will give our votes. We will close our eyes and walk off a cliff. If someone tells us what we want to hear, we don't like the truth at all. We don't like it because it doesn't feel good. And when you hear the truth, it forces you to look inward and then make corrections. For whatever reason, we're a glutton for punishment. For whatever reason, we like to jog in place. For whatever reason, we like to walk around with our eyes wide shut. And the more you try to wake us up, it's almost as if you rock us deeper into sleep. This is a spiritual problem because we are not idiots. So, I look at for those who are political and all that, I'm not really that political. I'm an independent.
I
But
am.
my values are more my values are more conservative. But what the left side of the politicians are doing, the left side, the left wing, you
The
guys, it's
leftables.
demonic. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
demonic. It's very demonic. You could just look at everything as it is. It's very demonic. It's very divisive. Truth be told, the real racism is coming from the left side. And it's not to say there's not racist people on both sides, not saying that. But the agenda itself is systemic systemically racist in nature. When you just look at it and then look at the outcomes from their policies and outcomes from what they are projecting. I call this situation, I call this the 10%,
Mm.
right? The 10%. What tends to happen is everyone is trying to use the 10% as as a representation for the 90%.
That is true.
And that is the problem. That's the problem. So when you say to me, why do we have to coddle? I agree. We're not supposed to. The problem, though, is two things. Police officers are servants to the people. And there is a condition of some of our people. And the condition is they were taught to believe from people that they trust that the police are a danger to them. It's not their fault. Where I blame some of our people is that we don't want to listen. And when you try to combat the ignorance, you're met with hostility. That's the issue that I put the blame on us for. That when someone tries to bring wisdom, you don't want to hear it. And it goes back to this saying that it's easier to fool a person than to tell a person they've been fooled. And that is our Achilles heel. As a community, a lot of us don't want to listen. So the brainwashing is the brainwashing. The brainwashing is legit because of the historical relationship Black people have had with policing. And also, there have been current, and to this day, there are still remnants of racist people who are in policing. And what a lot of people don't appreciate or like within the Black community is that when it is time to remove said people, when it's time to actually punish said people, you see that the law, or you see that they are being protected, or that the punishment is not appropriate for those who have violated the oath, who have used racist practices against a group of Black people. So there are folks who are just saying, at the end of the day, we don't think that the justice system is operating consistently fair on both sides. And I would have to argue and say that there's truth to that. The problem is these are fringe cases, these are fringe incidents, and they do not represent the norm. But what ends up happening is that these politicians on the left will have you believe that this is a regular occurrence, that any encounter with the police will leave you to be killed, or leave you to have unfair treatment. And that's false. That's absolutely false. I say the 10% is not the 90%, but yet these people who want to manipulate you, who want to tell you or create this narrative through propaganda, want you to believe that the 10% is the 90%, and that's false. And that is where the confusion lies, because a lot of information that we get as Black people, especially in some of these inner cities, we either get it vicariously through somebody else who's a criminal, who's out doing wrong, or we get it from the media, we get it through social media, we get it through Al Sharpton and them, or I mean, the highest level of the seat. We're talking about the president is telling you that you're more likely to be killed by the police, and that's false. You know, white people are killed more by the police than Black people are, and even unarmed. You know, we are killed more by maybe 3, 4, 5 numbers. But what people don't realize, and I have this conversation, because you're unarmed doesn't mean you're not dangerous. And when you're dealing with a populace of police officers who are poorly trained and they don't know how to defend themselves with their hands, unfortunately, if you put yourself in a situation, there's a great likelihood that you're going to be shot by the officer. If that officer can't protect himself by being punched in the face, you're going to get shot. And that's just the reality of it. But people will see that and think that it's racist. And in actuality, it's like, no, you need to follow instructions.
Okay, so that's fair. I appreciate you taking the time to
Mhm.
help me think through that in real time, because I spend a lot of my time fighting to help people who look like me see that they don't need to look at themselves as inferior or even speak of themselves as some
Correct.
inferior, infantile class of people that have to be handled differently because of trauma that they never lived through. I say yes, our people have a history of trauma, right?
Hmm.
But from a historical perspective, but it's not isolated to just us. We're not the only ones who have suffered. And then furthermore, most of us have not personally lived through any of this. Okay.
Nope.
I mean, I'm how many generations let's
Removed.
see, removed from it. And I can't even tell you that there were stories that my great grandmother told me that made me be like, "Oh, you had it so rough." Like and this is just my personal story. I'm not saying that my story is the standard,
Right.
but what I'm saying is, I needed someone to help me flesh that out because I find myself, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'll do the opposite. For example, I got into a vehicle accident a couple of years ago, and I was in the wrong. I hit someone in the back because I wasn't paying attention. It wasn't, a
Yeah,
treacherous
yeah.
accident, but I was clearly wrong.
Right.
And I found myself overcompensating and being extra nice to the cop because I already knew the part of town I was in. I was
Right.
already used to seeing people showing out for no reason. And I just
Right.
wanted to let that officer know. I was like, listen, you ain't got to tell me. I'm dead wrong. I already know. I wasn't paying attention. I hit the car in front of me. My apologies. And it wasn't an adversarial
Right.
type of nothing like that. And I felt like me doing that allowed him to be like, whew, okay. And we were good. We
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
good after that. He was just like, all right, this is what you got to do. I got to give you a ticket. You was following too close. He didn't even show up to court. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
he and I'm wondering if because I didn't come at him with this aggression and trying to just show out, I just accepted the fact that now the person I hit, that girl was not injured. She was being so extra and over the top. There was no damage to her car, and I was just like, he was like, I know. I was like, you see this, right? He was like, he didn't say nothing because he already knew she looked like me and
Right.
she was being extra.
Right.
Instead of just us handling it like adults, ma'am, I used to work in the insurance industry. So the last thing you're supposed to do is admit fault. But I was like, I did it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
When you're
just
wrong.
took the L because I knew I did it. And my
Right.
kids was in the car. They were like, oh my God, mommy, you going to jail? I was like, no, I'm not going. And it wasn't because they had seen that happen before. They just
Mhm.
assumed you break the law, you go to jail. I was like, not in this circumstance. It's just a fender bender. Everything's going to
Right.
be fine. Mommy was at fault. I made the mistake. But I want to play a clip for
Hmm.
you that I came across. And I'm going to reserve my commentary to after I've given you a chance to speak on it. But I want to play this clip, and I want you, as well as the listening audience, when we come back, we're going to engage with it. But it's lengthy, but it's impactful. And I wanna hear your thoughts as well as what the listening audience is gonna say. And please, y'all, we are going to take questions. I have been keeping up with all of y'all's questions, and we're gonna engage. Even you, Mr. Music Man, we're gonna address some of your comments too. I don't know if Music Man is a troll or if he legitimately likes my content, but he never has anything positive to say. But
It'd
I
be
am
like that. Yeah.
interested. I'm interested in hearing from him, and I'm not his enemy, despite how he comes across in my comments. But I think we can have an adult dialogue and exchange about this. But take a listen to this clip here. As soon as I find it, here it goes.
A line that we do at our house. We practice this thing. What is it?
I'm Ariel Sky Williams. I'm 8 years old. I'm unarmed and I have nothing that will hurt you.
It's just kind of a thing we practice at our house. There are great police officers out there. There's also some police officers who are not so good.
And my fear is that you run across one of those bad ones.
For some reason, people of color have always been a target by the police.
Before they became a policeman, they were a person. And that person took all their ideas and all their thoughts and all their prejudice into their job.
Why would a police officer assume that you did something bad?
Maybe because of my skin color.
I remember being put in handcuffs for something that had nothing to do with me. I was literally walking in the mall. Cops slammed me on the ground, busted my lip, chipped my tooth. That actually made me really mad.
How about the time they pulled us over with me in the car and arrested me and left all of you guys sitting in the car and nobody knew how to drive on the side of the road because the bumper on the car was kind of hanging off?
No.
You know, we live in Puyallup. There's people that don't even have a bumper on their car.
My rear brake light wasn't working, and I got to my destination and they were working.
I was about your age, actually. They grabbed me.
Why?
I didn't know at the time. They just grabbed me. They threw me onto the police car.
I got tased that time. That time they tased me because they said I wasn't complying.
Ariel, are you okay?
What's wrong, baby? I'm okay, I'm alive, all right? Every day I get to see you, I get to do this, right? All right, come on, let's calm down, let's finish this, all right? You good? Hey, you're making me cry. Come on.
You have to be careful when you're out there in this world because this world's not going to always be honest or fair to you. I know, Sean, you got a little bit lighter than the rest of them, so it's a possibility you won't get stopped.
Pretend like you just pulled him over.
Okay. If you're driving, cop pulls you over.
Police gets out the car, comes to the window. What would you do?
License and registration, please, ma'am.
Why do you think I pulled you over?
I don't know, tell me.
When a police officer says something to you, don't, you're black. You can't be looking at them saying, oh, I don't know, why don't you tell me?
Well, I mean,
that right there is giving them the license to pull you out of your car and physically harm you because it will be done.
Don't get upset, don't get sassy. Why did you pull me over? You don't have, I know how, just follow instructions and stay calm.
Okay.
Do you think just being a police officer and pulling you over, regardless of if you feel you've done something or not, they should get your respect?
That's a tricky question.
The answer is yes.
Yes. If you got to go to your wallet to get your ID, say, can I go reach in my back pocket to get my ID out?
You could do what I do, and I show them my hands, so when they're walking up, they see I don't have anything in my hands.
I'm Ariel Sky Williams, and I have nothing that will harm you or hurt you.
And what's the next place you put your hands when you're driving or on the steering wheel with your hands out?
If at all possible, turn your phone on.
And call someone and put it on speaker.
But whatever you're doing, I want you to say what you're doing before you do it.
You don't write any statements.
Well, you have to write a statement.
You don't have to write anything. You're a minor. I'm responsible for you. No one can tell you anything else.
If it tells you to be quiet, be quiet. Do everything that you can to get back to me. I see it weighing on you, and I don't want it to weigh on you.
I'm just worried about Donovan. I'm worried about him now.
Who are you guys talking about?
My nephew and her cousin.
I don't want him to be shot. I don't want him to go to jail.
You guys, if you could say anything to police, what would you say?
Learn about people, learn about their problems.
Take some diversity training. I mean, it should be like at this point, like a monthly requirement.
You know, there's really nothing at this point that they could do that would make me feel any safer with them without them just point blank, clearing them all out and starting all over from scratch.
So don't always assume that all of them are bad.
Mm-hmm. But all you see on the news and in newspapers, and it keeps happening. It's just in a different way. It's like how people are like, you should forgive so-and-so, but they keep doing it to me. I forgave them, but they keep doing it to me. It gets harder and harder to forgive them.
Well, Nathan, when you watch that, what are some of the thoughts that come to your mind?
That one, that it's not the proper way to teach etiquette when encountering the police. It's just not. Again, this goes back to what I said earlier, fear-mongering. You're teaching fear. Not one time did they ever say, let me teach you the law, right? What does the law say? You know, how do you talk, how do you speak your constitutional rights to the officer? How do you know when your rights are being violated? See, the difference between our community, the white community, you got white folks who jump out the car on a traffic stop. Sir, it is legal for me to make that U-turn and you're pulling me, like, you know, and it's like they command, almost like as Christians, what do they say? When you are speaking, you speak, right? You command, devil be gone, right? Nah, devil, can you
No,
please
I ain't
stop?
talking to Satan. I don't do that. No,
Well,
but I
get
know
I'm
what you
saying.
meant.
Yeah,
Right.
it's one of those things where there is. Are you approaching it from a place of weakness? Or are you approaching it from a place of strength?
Right.
They're speaking as if we're out here being targeted, being lynched, being assassinated, being oppressed by the police, and that's false. You know, majority of the cases that I seen that's been in the news, we have instigated our own injuries. We've instigated a lot of times our own demise by the hands of officers. We don't want to talk about that. We always want to say, well, he was afraid. She was afraid. I get that. But when you act like this, when you do that, you just got done committing this crime, that crime, and then you're fighting, you're jumping, you're resisting. Well, those things exacerbate the outcome. And if we're not having an honest conversation about that, that's a problem. Now, that doesn't dismiss, again, that 10%, right? And again, people are taking it. I like what that young girl said in the news. I keep seeing it in the news. Well, that's done by design because the news is here for profit. So they are going to put out whatever's profitable. I can tell you countless of cases of victims, white victims, who have died by the hands of officers, legally and illegally, where they use excessive force and no, whatever the situation is, every single case that we have put on a pedestal, we have examined in the media regarding deaths of Black individuals, men and women, whether it's Breonna Taylor, whether it's Tamir Rice, whether it's George Floyd, and the list goes on. Every single person who's died by the hands of the police, justly or unjustly, I can find you 3 white people have died the exact same way. And they've never made the news. Never made the news. No one has ever marched for them. No one has ever said their names.
No one's
They've
ever tore up a
protested.
city for him.
Listen, they've protested and you never heard about it. I know cases that Ben Crump has defended, but has never even posted on his social media, has ever talked about. See, because what people don't understand, they keep saying this white supremacy, it's green supremacy.
Come on.
It's about the money. It's about the money. So I had to do a show on my channel, and then I'm gonna cover some of these statements that were made, where a young lady made a statement and said, you can't show me a Black Tamir Rice. You can't show me a Sandra Bland. You can't show me a Philando Castile. You can't show me a Breonna Taylor that is white. See, when you have people who sell that rhetoric to our community, guess what Black people do? We believe it.
We do.
We believe it. We suck it up, you guys. It's something about us where we love to chew the lies, but when it's time to swallow the truth, we ain't trying to do all that, right? So the whole idea is that these statements are made out of ignorance.
Right.
It's made out of ignorance. And now you have the blind leading the blind. And then I come on the scene and I say, hey, listen, you guys, that's not accurate, right? That's not the proper way to do it. You're teaching the wrong way because now you're teaching fear. So now when I come across the police, I'm like, oh my God, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I don't know what to do. Right? So I'm over here like, what did he say? And now guess what? I'm panicking because I'm in fear. And then I make a real mistake. Get your hands. And you have officers who are just as retarded now, right? They're not trained good. A lot of these officers are not trained properly to deal with your confusion, to deal with your fear. Because now I'm afraid as a white officer because all I see on TV is y'all killing each other.
Right. Or about to jump out and pull a weapon.
Exactly. The media propaganda works both ways. And I want people to understand this. Not only is the media disproportionately showing acts of crimes of Black people than they are white people. Let's be clear, you guys. White people commit more crimes than Black people. Way more. The media purposely portrays our crime, I forgot what the percentage was, but let's just say twice as much, 3 times as much as they show white people committing crimes. So then what happens psychologically is you start to think that Black people are the only ones out here committing crime, that Black people are the only ones being shot by the police. You guys, white people are shot and killed almost 3 times more than Black people. So they don't show it because it's not profitable, right? That's the same reason why we complain about
enough.
It's not emotional. It doesn't invoke that emotion that gets you wanting to watch, gets you wanting to spend your money, right? What's another thing we complain about? There are only certain crimes that the media picks up on and pushes it through the media, depending on what type of crime it is. For example, perfect example of this, I'm gonna get back to that. Missing persons. The Black community always complains that anytime a white child goes missing, they're up in arms and they're ready to show and do all these things. And they're like, well, Black and brown people go missing all the time. You guys don't ever talk about it. Because honestly, it doesn't really evoke our emotions as much. But with white people, when kids go missing, they spend a lot of money. They invest a lot of attention into it. They go out their way to watch the media. That's why they really single that crime out specifically, right? But then when it comes to white people being shot, you know how white people think? Let me just put this out here for you, because I obviously I'm in these spaces. You know how they think when I talk to white officers and you have a white suspect that gets shot? The first thing they say is, well, I guess he should have listened. You know, I guess that's what happens. When you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. See, that callous mentality, they apply it for everybody. Black people are not special. When they look at a situation, they look at it as the first thing they ask is, was this person doing what they were supposed to do? When we do something wrong in our community, a lot of times we go to look at the person who's actually carrying out the discipline. Right? Think about your kid.
Then we make our judgment.
Then we make our judgment. Okay, your kid comes home, they got suspended. The first thing you could blame is the teacher, right? Whereas parents, you have other parents from other ethnic groups, they're looking at the behavior of the individual. They're holding the individual accountable. And again, that's not to say that they're not bad actors in law enforcement. I'm saying that we are so hyper-focused on the 10%. The 10%. On my channel, I say comply to survive. That's what I educate on my channel. Comply to survive, because a lot of times we get in contact with the police and we're already in the wrong from the beginning. And then we want to fight and push back and try to go against the mouth. The mouth is always one of the biggest things that get us in trouble. And a lot of times too, you're dealing with officers who have ego problems. So again, you got to take all this in consideration. One of the things, again, one of the biggest problems too that we do in our community that needs to be addressed is we like to embellish our stories. I've talked to
that
plenty.
Video. I know that lady with the bumper was embellishing. I'm like, man,
exactly.
When do they do that? Just the bumper. That's
Let me hear the whole.
thing.
I need the whole story.
Right.
I need the whole story. I'm gonna tell you guys right now, and again, it's not us beating up on Black folks, but we got to speak truth to power. I had to, obviously, in this space now, and even advocating for both sides, in a sense, to rebuild this relationship. I sit and I listen to everybody's stories. Even on the street when I was patrolling, I listened to everybody's story. And I get this whole, and I'm gonna tell you, I get these whole stories. People get to tell me what happened, and I get it from start to finish. And I'm like, sir, ma'am, you were wrong.
Right. It's like they are cognitively just somewhere else.
Yes. Yeah. It's because we what ends up really happening, what I really broke it down to, is not that Black people think the officer in these encounters are racist. The majority of the time, we are complaining about the lack of professionalism from police officers that we try to assign as being racist because the officer's white. But when you start to really hear I said, sir, you don't like the fact that he yelled at you. Like, that's what this is all about. Sir, you don't like the fact he cursed at you. Sir, you don't like the fact that he wrote you 6 tickets and he didn't have to, right? So the idea is, I know that officer, he does that to everybody, right? So again, we have this thing where we try to create a narrative that makes us feel better. And so that is the issue when we like to embellish stories. But when you hear it, that's why when you hear these things come out in court, you be like, man, bro, you had us hyped up and that's not even what happened. You know, because we like to tell the story from the middle, right? We like to tell the story from the middle. Next, 6 officers pulled up, they had me on the ground, whoop-de-whoop, slam my head on the hood, and next you know I'm bleeding, 2 fell out. Ain't like, dang, bro, I can't believe, bro, man, I can't stand them. And then a week later, you find out, he robbed a gas station. He was running from the police, and then they caught him. And then it takes the wind out of the. So again and again, we're talking about, when I'm listening to them talk about their story, a lot of us in my encounters, because I patrolled our community. This is the community I served, you guys. I would come in contact with people when I pulled them over. They got both hands out the window already. I had one guy from New York, threw the keys out the window, had his hands out. Well, guess how that makes me feel? It puts me on alert. Now I'm holding my gun like, man, what is going on? He already got, why? Because that's not natural.
It's not.
That's not a natural reaction. It's not a natural response. You are over exaggerating. I pull up, I got my hand on my gun because now I'm like, man, what this guy got his hand? I said, sir, is everything okay? Can you roll all windows down? Oh, yeah. Well, I'm about to take my right hand, officer. And I'm like, it's okay. You're good.
And
You're
I'm
good.
going to go like this.
Yeah. I'm going to do this and I'm going to slowly pull it back now. I said, okay. Do you have any guns on you? He said, no, sir, I don't. I said, okay. I said, sir, you can put your hands back on the window. You can put your hands on the steering wheel. Okay, I'm slowly doing it all. I said, okay. I said, sir, the reason why I pulled you over is because your registration's expired. I said, what's up with all that other stuff you're doing?
If you was as careful about your registration as you were with this encounter, we wouldn't be here.
That's it. I said, bro, man, here are your keys, man. I said, you got your ID, your license good? Yeah, man, he was so gone that I ended up writing him a warning because I just wanted to create a positive experience for him. You get what I'm saying? I said, look, man, I write warning tickets for those who are 30 days within their expiration of the registration, right? A lot of people don't know it expires on your birthday. They know you get a fine, but they don't know that you can get a ticket for it. That's cool.
Oh, wow,
it's not
you
a big
get a
deal.
ticket for it? Because I always thought I had to the end of the month. My birthday.
Everybody says that, yeah.
My birthday's on the 27th. I was like, I got at least.
Oh, okay. No. So what happens, the moment it hits the date of birth, it's expired. The state will fine you a late fee.
Right.
But in our system, it's expired. It's no longer registered.
I've been riding dirty for years in the month of March.
Everybody does.
And I be confident too. Like, I got to the 31st.
I got time. No. And that's why I always give people that grace. But I had to tell him, I said, sir, and here's the thing. This is what I asked him. I said, why did you do that? I said, have you had a bad experience with the police? You know what he told me? He said, no. So then I said, then why are you doing that? He said, I have a friend who was beaten up by the police in New York. And ever since then, I always make sure. So this is what I'm saying. We live vicariously through other people. But then I ask you, okay, what did you do? What did your friend do? Right? Like, so again, we have this thing. And again, this is not, and I have to reiterate that because there's always going to be somebody who's going to say, you think the police don't do wrong? No, they do plenty of wrong, you guys. But the numbers don't add up, right? The numbers don't add up. And so the way they went about, I wish I could teach the proper class on how the etiquette should be for our community. And here's another thing that I've seen in our community. I could be walking in uniform through the grocery store, through Walmart, Publix, or wherever. And I come across a young kid, 6, 7, 12, who's misbehaving or not doing anything at all. And you know what the mom will say to that child? There goes a police officer. If you don't act up, he's gonna take you to jail. If you don't listen, he's gonna. You have parents, mothers. I've never seen a man do this. You have mothers in our community that will weaponize police officers and as a form of disciplining or threatening or putting fear in a child. And you know what I do every time? I get on my knees, I get down to the level of that child. I scold the parent. Ma'am, don't tell your child that. When they see me, they don't need to be afraid, right? I get on my knees, I talk to the child directly. Hey, I'm here to help you. Anything you need, you see us in uniform, you always just ask for help. You can smile, wave, say hello. We're always going to smile. Anything you need, always come to us. We're not here to take you to jail. We're here to stop bad people from hurting you and innocent people around you. Does that make sense? And the kids are like, okay, now give me a smile. Okay, do you want some candy? Mom, can I get them some candy? And then I have to do this as a way to break that stigma that parents are instilling in their children, young Black kids. So then now when they grow up, they already have this fear and this discontent for police officers. This happens all the time. You can ask any officer and they tell you they have a similar story. And so instead of having a conversation about the proper etiquette with police, we are teaching it from a place of fear and not a place of empowerment. And it's very sad and it's very disheartening because, again, it creates this false narrative that the police are out here to harm you, and that's not true. You need to tell them the truth, though, but there's a way to do it to where they are empowered and not feeling like a victim of fear.
Right. Yeah. What I mean, when we do with our kids, I've never. Well, first, I don't do children that show out in public. No, it's gonna be a bad day for you. I think we had one child did that one time, and my husband lost it. Like he just snatched her up out the grocery store and took her to the car. I don't know what happened, but she's never done that. She's never done that again. But I always try to tell my children, um, when you do what is right, you won't have to worry about this. However, if you're ever in a situation where you either are wrongly accused or there is a misunderstanding, what we don't do is we're not showing out. You don't need to assert the fact that you it wasn't you creating a more hostile environment. I was like, we'll just come get you, but we don't. I don't know. We just don't have those kinds of conversations in our home. The only child that I actually had, I wouldn't even call it the talk. All we did was explain, when you start driving, this is where all the important documents are. In Georgia, our insurance is digital and electronic. So they already know when they pulled you over if you have insurance and if your registration is canceled. 9 times out of 10, all you got to do is pull out your driver's license and then comply. And you whatever they ask you to do, in reason, you're supposed to do it. But I think a lot of this could be a parenting problem. I know the part that really disturbed me in that clip was the older woman who singled out, the little light-skinned boy. I was like, this is that.
Yep.
So now you're creating animosity and dissension between these two boys where none probably existed before just because he's a little lighter. So basically you're saying, well, you're not going to have these kinds of problems because you're lighter than this one. I'm just like, what is wrong with our thinking that someone would say that on camera and think it's okay? And I couldn't tell him, like, is she trying to be funny? But even if she was, why would you say that to a child?
Cognitive dissonance within our community. Black people are some of the biggest racists, biggest self-denying racist people that I've ever met.
I would agree with that.
I think we believe that because of what happened to our ancestors, that we can't be racist. No, some of us are just as racist as the racist white people we complain about. And that's sad. And it's sad that we don't acknowledge it. I don't know, for whatever reason, we think that we are able to do things that other people shouldn't be able to do. That's another problem within our community. It has a lot to do with I call it I say that we suffer from accountophobia. This fear.
Of accountability.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fear of being held accountable. And
I don't think it's a
any
fear. I think it is just a refusal. It doesn't. I don't think we're afraid of accountability. We're just adverse to it.
and I agree. Yeah, I agree. And it's a thing too where, it's almost like black privilege, right?
That's
I always like,
exactly what it is. That's what I
yeah,
call it. That's
yeah,
what I
black
call
privilege.
it.
I can be racist. I could say I could say all these things about white people. I can call them pasty face. I can say they are Neanderthals. I can call them cave dwellers, but I'm allowed to do it. But if you call me a gorilla, if you call me a spear chucker or whatever, it's racist. You need to be canceled.
Never heard that before.
Oh
A
yeah,
spear
spear chucker.
chucker?
Spear chucker. Listen, racist people are creative with their insults.
That's
They're
funny.
very creative, and again, it's one-sided racism, and black people think that they're immune, and that some laws don't apply to us, that we could be racist. Right now, going on right now, for those who are not familiar, and this a little off track, but it's perfect for this particular segment. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for president. He's a Republican. I actually really like what he has to say. Really, really like his delivery. He made a statement recently about what Representative Ayanna, I think her name is.
Oh yeah, Ayanna Presley. Now I agree
Ayanna
with
Presley.
everything he said about it because it was
Yes,
basically she
it was
tried to shut
racist.
down the conversation.
Yep. She said to him that she doesn't want any more black faces not sounding or not speaking on black issues.
Right.
So if you're a black person and what comes out of your mouth has nothing to do with black people, essentially, I don't want you to be a part of what we got going on. I don't want you to represent us. I don't want you a part of this group. And this is this racist rhetoric that comes from the left side of politics, and then also within segments of the black community, where there are some black people who believe that they have a right to take your blackness away.
Yes.
That being black means you have to be of hive mind, like that if you don't think the way I think, if you don't say the things that I say, if you don't dance or eat the food that I eat, then you can no longer be considered black, and you need to shed your melanin and go over off to the other side somewhere. That's
very
racist.
dehumanizing because
Yes.
it's like, wait a minute, I was born with this skin, and you're gonna try to dehumanize me and take away the essence of who I am because I don't think
Right.
like you. It's
Yeah, it's very sad. It's something that's very pervasive within our community, where we will shame each other for being. You could be too intelligent in the black community, you're called a lame. You could be too proper, you're called white. You could speak proper English, and they say you talk white. So this is like you said. I never even worded it that way, but dehumanizing, I think, is a perfect way. You are not allowed to be a free thinker in the black community. You're alienated and ostracized and criticized.
right.
Black on spectrum.
I know, black on spectrum. So I guess you kind of already answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, do you believe that black people are unjustly targeted by police?
I think here's the problem. Yes and no. I think the reality that we realize that black skin has been marketed as a threat to society. Okay, so, but again, this goes back to the propaganda. This goes back to media. Media plays a big role in this. When you are presenting all the crime that's being occurred in a nation, and 99% of those being shown are black people, yeah, you create a fear element in this country where everybody thinks that the criminals and the most dangerous people are black. Black skin becomes weaponized in this country. That's a fact. So there's truth to that. There's truth to that.
That goes to what I heard Vivek Ramaswamy say. He said a lot of this racism that y'all are talking about is so pervasive. He was like, you're creating the very thing that you claim is the problem. Because I said this years ago. I was like, if they keep with this narrative, and because I have a lot of white friends, I have Asian friends, Indian friends, but I told my white friends, I said, listen, if they keep stoking these flames of racism, eventually one of y'all gonna snap. And I was like, I love y'all, and I know y'all love me, but eventually it's only but so much you can take if someone keep accusing you of something that you're not, and assuming that you think the worst before you just snap and just go postal. And I'm not saying, I do want you to give some thoughts on what you believe happened down in Jacksonville. I have no issues with saying that if the person mentioned in a manifesto that he had partiality toward black people and his whole goal was to off some black people, then that's wrong and it's disgusting. However, I still want to talk about, what about the climate that's been created that made it so racially intense where it wasn't before, that there was hatred brewing in his heart, that if it wasn't for the media constantly talking about it all the time and then making it a thing and just talking about white supremacy and all of these other issues, I'm wondering if he, and I'm not excusing him, I'm not at all, but I wonder if that's what we're seeing. Everywhere you look, racism is under a rock, peeking up its head like, gotcha, And I feel that, and like I said, I was very transparent with my white friends. I was like, listen, y'all safe with me, but on some level, this has got to make you feel some sort of kind of way. When they're constantly told that they can't speak, they can't have an opinion because they are not the right melanin count.
Correct.
Listen, if I was white, I'd be like, screw you and everybody that look like you. I would be upset. And it's sinful. It's not okay. But I understand, and I can see how it can lead a person who needs to be accountable for their own sinful heart. I can see how it can stoke those kinds of feelings.
You're absolutely correct. And imagine, the left does an amazing job at utilizing this Trojan horse of racism. They used it, they weaponized it just like they weaponized Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter was a Trojan horse. So essentially, you see a golden horse show up at your doorstep, it's supposed to mean and represent something positive. But if you just so happen to look inside the horse, you see the toxins, you see the dangers within it, and you say, as a white person and someone else as a black person, hold on, you guys, pause. There's something dangerous inside that horse, right? Don't look on the outside, look on the inside. But people are so enamored with the outside of the horse that if you attack the horse, the inside of the horse, people think you're attacking the outside of the horse. That is such a textbook historical tactic of psychological warfare that's very, very effective. And what you see is people were complaining about the organization, but then you had the ignorance of the people on the outside who thought that when you attack the organization, that you were then attacking the name and what the name means. And they're saying, no, listen what I'm saying. I don't care what you say, you're a racist.
They weren't listening.
And then they shut down, right? Racism sends people into this autopilot of ignorance, right? They shut down and then they're on autopilot. And that's the problem. What I love about Vivek is he's saying we need to get back to the truth. We need to just be able to have conversation. We have gotten to a place in this country where we are afraid to talk about sensitive things. And that's how this racism and systemic racism narrative has begun to fester to a point to we're on the brink of collapse. We're on the brink of a racial civil war in this country. And I think that's what they want. And I would say this to that question you asked earlier as it relates to, are Black people targeted? And unfortunately, what people don't want to admit or what people don't understand. And when you're living in it, you're living in a community, you're living in a city. There are still sundown towns in this country where they don't want Black people present. We have to admit and accept those and realize that this is a fact. What we also don't want to realize, as a grand scheme of thing, there are approximately 80,000 police departments in this country. There are approximately 700,000 police officers who are employed in this country that serve over 300 plus million people in this country, right? So let's look at the numbers. Out of 700,000 people, 12% of those people are Black. 12% of the police force in this country are African American, and it's declining drastically. So what we don't want to admit in this country, that white people are about 60%. They are about 60%, and in the entire professional sphere of this country, in any profession, they are the majority, right? That's a fact. And I think we represent between 6 to 7% of the labor force in any profession. So we are a minority group. The reality is there's a sprinkle of racist people all throughout this country. Some are racist, some are unprofessional, some just don't care, some are racially insensitive, like we said earlier.
Some of them
You don't know.
Black.
It's some of right. So the truth of the matter is all police officers are not created equal, you guys. All police departments are not created equal. We have to understand that you might live in one city and 3 miles away, there's another police department in that city, and they handle their business in a corrupt way, all up and down the police department. There are some police departments in Mississippi that run a very bad, corrupt organization, and they do a disservice to the people. Then you drive an hour away and you have a police department that does an amazing job. So the truth of the matter is we have pockets of problems. The question is, how do we fix it? How do we get rid of it? How do we make a difference? How do we wipe out a lot of these bad actors out of the profession? Whether you're unprofessional, you're corrupt, or you're a racist. The reality is a little bit of everything is inside this profession, just like a little bit of everything is in every single profession. You're not going to get away from that. So we have to be honest about that. And then as Black people say, what are you going to do about it? But voting the same way, getting the same people to do the same problems is not going to solve it. So until we be honest about what we are doing to actually fix the problem, complaining is not going to do it. It's not going to change anything. And voting in real racist people that are racist simply because you don't like the other side because they're Republican. Just because a person's Republican and conservative doesn't mean they're racist. I hope we all know that. We are suffering from this self-inflicted, induced state of ignorance that we are putting on ourselves simply because we don't want to listen to other people. And so, yes, there is a problem in policing. No, it's not as big as Black people are making it out to be. Even though there are Black people who have suffered from the hands, even today, of corrupt law enforcement. So it's nuance. And I think the problem is we don't want to have that nuanced conversation. But to have an honest conversation means you have to have a nuanced conversation to better understand how to actually bring a solution to the problem.
I love that what you said concerning that, and I'm curious. I don't know how long you've been in Atlanta, but this has been my home for maybe 26 years now,
Mhm.
and from your experience in and around Metro Atlanta when you were in your police capacity, what do you believe has changed? Because areas like Buckhead and Midtown,
Yeah.
and like areas where you could go on a Friday night, hop from club to club, have a good time, and go home alive with your car, like your car, right? Not on foot because somebody just carjacked you and stole your car, but you could just go. And now it is so bad that you
Yep.
can't park your car.
Yep.
You can't even park your car near the governor's mansion without fear
Nope.
that you might get carjacked in your driveway. So
Yep.
it's difficult to have these conversations without having a discussion surrounding I don't know, the family dynamic that has drastically
Yes.
changed in this country. Can you talk to us about, in your experience, what you've seen happen perhaps in the family that may be contributing to what we see in terms of the rise in crime? Or do you think it's a little bit of the family and then it's this other element that is causing that? I have my personal view with just the whole conversation surrounding policing, and the defund the police movement has directly impacted this. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever. I don't care if, even if it really didn't mean, have less police on the force and take the money, go somewhere else. In my mind, I'm like, why would you want less police?
Right. Let me say this. That way we can properly analyze this situation. We have to separate the police and the people.
Right.
The police problem is not the people's problem. There's a people problem in this country, then there's a police problem. They both need to go in a corner and fix their issues and then come back, right? We're married to each other because police are servants of the people, right? If I can't get on a knee and serve you respectfully, I don't need to be doing the job. So I am a servant of you. But if I have issues, I can't serve you properly. And if you have issues, you can't respect me properly, and therefore I can't do my job. So what's happening is people are trying to blame, right? If we're talking about our community specifically, we're blaming the police are blaming the people. What are the police saying about the people? That we have no respect. We want to control the narrative, do what we want to do. We don't respect the law, the rule of law, and the rule of order. There's truth to that. And then the people are saying to the police, well, you guys have egos. You're not respecting us. You're using too much force, and so forth and so on. You're abusing your power. There's a lot of truth to that. So we both have things. We both have to clean our own homes. This is true. But now let's talk about the people, because the police are not off the hook at all. There's a lot that we need to do. But what we need to do has nothing to do with the crime that's actually taking place, because the police are responders of crime, right? And so what's happening with the people when we talk about the community and our community specifically? We have people who are not qualified to be parents. We have people who are not qualified to be parents. And just because you have two parents in the home, a father in the home, doesn't mean you have a good father. It doesn't mean you have a good mother. There's a single motherhood problem. There's a single parent problem within our community. A lot of the kids in these inner cities are raised by moms, single moms who have multiple children from multiple fathers. Just because you're a single mom doesn't mean you're a good one, And I think we've created this narrative that moms are somehow some victims. No, some of them are a danger to the community themselves. And so every child I've arrested and put handcuffs on, juvenile, there was no father present for whatever reason. We can debate another day about why there's fatherlessness in some of these homes. One could argue that you have two immature people coming together and creating life, and then abandoning their responsibilities. And so therefore, you're creating this unhealthy household, this broken home, because you can have a broken home with two parents now. You can have a broken home with a father that may not live there. He lives somewhere else, but he is just as toxic as the mother. And that creates an unhealthy household, which then produces a child who becomes very delinquent. The likelihood of that child being delinquent is it rises astronomically. We're talking about there is a lack of healthy nuclear families within the Black community and within this nation as a whole. And what ends up evolving from that is dysfunctional neighborhoods, dysfunctional communities. And through that, crime starts to form, grow, and skyrocket. And so crime is not there's no the correlation to poverty is not crime. The correlation to poverty is a broken home. And there are people who will have you believe that what's taking place in the Black community has everything to do with poverty. No, not at all. It has everything to do with upbringing. And people don't want to address that because they don't have an answer for it. See, you can't legislate love. You can't legislate parenting, right? I can't create a law to force a mother to choose the proper male. I can't legislate law to get a male to choose and who to properly sleep and pick the proper woman to lay his seed on. There's no law. These are moral issues. These are spiritual issues. These are social issues. The government has no answer for that. What they can speak on is crime. They can speak on is policy. So there's three things here. Poor policy creates the crime. Policy, that's what government has control over. Right. Poor parenting and poor people. Well, not them being poor, but people parenting and politics. Right. That's the issue. And when you have corrupt politicians, when you have dysfunctional parents, and when you have the people in the community that do not care, right? You have no village. Everyone's out for themselves.
I don't want the village though.
You don't want the village?
I seen what the village pumps out. I'm good.
That's true. That's true. But that's what it is. It's in Atlanta, speaking of Atlanta, when you decriminalize shoplifting, you decriminalize marijuana. I used to arrest guys who, because I worked on the border of Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, and then DeKalb County. Woo. I would arrest these kids, young adults, who think they're still in Atlanta, right? So they break into a store, they're shoplifting, stealing stuff, or they're carrying drugs. And I arrest them. It's like, hold on, officer, what's going on? What's going on? I thought it was legal. I thought I could do this.
Wait,
I said,
what?
Sir, no. Yeah, because bless her heart, Keisha lands bottoms. And this is why, as Black people, we have to stop voting off skin color and start voting off of policy. Because we get so focused on worrying about the color of a person's skin instead of the content of their character, and we end up losing out on the long end, right? Keisha Lance Bottoms created a lot of policies that empowered criminal behavior. For whatever reason, a lot of Democrats believe that if you decriminalize and not punish certain crimes, that all of a sudden, because you're doing this because Black people don't know any better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say it's okay for us to, I want to not make shoplifting and theft illegal. I want to make not having marijuana less than a certain amount illegal because it's impacting Black people more. So their logic, for whatever reason, Jesus Christ, for whatever reason, they think that by making it legal and no punishment, that all of a sudden that's going to help Black people. And this is the real
dumbest thing I've ever heard. Are you serious?
Yes, that's the logic. And to be honest, that is the real systemic racism.
That's
if
some
you think
serious
about it.
bigotry of low expectations if I've ever heard it.
Listen, that's why California looks the way California looks. Why you can have 30 plus people run into a store, a high-end store, and steal everything. Why? There's no fear of consequence. So her logic is, okay, well, Black kids are being arrested more for shoplifting than white kids. So I think that's racist. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to decriminalize it to help Black people out. Why did she do that? Because she's pandering. She's pandering to Black people for votes. Yeah, pandering. And guess what? So now what do the Black criminal kids do? Well, if we're not going to go to jail for it, I'm going to do it more. And so she ties the hands of the police, and then they go out here and they commit more crime, and then are creating themselves more into career criminals. Because if they don't think they're going to go to jail, then who's going to stop me? I'm going to just do it some more. That's why the city of Atlanta burned down during these protests. It wasn't because these folks wanted to do it. They did it because they felt like they can get away with it. And that's the reason why that incident with Rayshard Brooks took place, why those officers got charged, and then they had to drop the charges because they didn't do anything illegal. You may not like what they did. You may not have understood why they did it, but they didn't commit a crime. But Keisha and them decided to prosecute them illegally, even though she knew she didn't have a right to do so. But she did it to pander to the public. And
then she
again,
didn't even run for re-election because she knew.
she knew. You know how many kids died behind the policies she's created? No, in real life died. I mean, well, you're out here with me, so you already know the kid who was shot in the back. We had several young kids die from gun violence by the hands of Black people because she tied the hands of the police department. I have friends who work in Atlanta, and they said, listen, you know, they told us that they don't want us to patrol in these neighborhoods anymore because of the whole George Floyd thing. And so they stopped, and the crime went up. Shootings went up. Deaths went up. And I think it was after the fourth child, I think, who got killed from stray bullets. Then that's when all the Congress people got together and said, no, you need to reactivate the police and they need to do their job because
Too
the
late
streets.
now. It's too late
Too late.
because now the whole reputation around policing, no one
Yes.
wants to sign up for that. If police are
Nope.
demonized and told
Yep.
don't fight crime, then they're like,
Yep.
okay, well, what do you want me to do then?
Yep. Yep. So the logic is because Black people are disproportionately being impacted by these laws of shoplifting and drug possession, we're going to decriminalize it. That again is also escape of accountability. We're not looking at the behavior. Why do we feel like Black people aren't smart enough or capable of following the rule of law? So instead of us following the law, we then invoke Black privilege and say, because too many of us are being arrested for doing this, then the answer, instead of disciplining those, we're going to take it away because we think that because the level of impact, it within itself is racist. That's asinine to me.
That's
Complete
what Brandon
mind
Johnson's
blowing.
doing in Chicago. I got a video
Yes.
queued up on that. I don't even want to talk about that. That's gonna make me. I'm gonna start tweaking, and it's gonna be bad. I don't understand that because anyone who's a parent knows that if you raise your children and you don't enact discipline on them, I mean you already know what the results of that are, and it's almost. I think they've done this on purpose. It's like they almost wanted to
Yes.
destroy the
Yes.
city and tear it down. And I struggle to believe that
It's
this
true.
was not purposeful. I really
yeah.
struggle to believe that they are just that altruistic and that naive in their minds that they really thought that they were doing a good thing, and that maybe statistically they felt, well, if we do this and we're not arresting that many Black people, we can show them the statistics that see, when I was in office, only this amount of people went to jail. It's like, well, that's because you didn't prosecute them. You didn't do anything.
Correct.
They really think
We
we're stupid.
No, they know we're stupid.
Oh,
That's the reason why they do it. It's one of those things where if it's the lack of accountability. Again, they're concerned with it's profit over people, you know, and they want votes. And no Democrat is going to get a Black vote if you hold Black people accountable. You're absolutely not. You have to pander. In order for them to win, they have to pander to Black people. That's why, and it's easy. And, you know, and you mentioned it on another stream that you did where, you know, I spoke to that mayor and he said straight up, he's like, I ran as a Democrat. And all I had to do was tell Black people that Republican that was running against me was a racist. And he wasn't a racist. He knew he wasn't a racist. And he said it to do what? To basically win over Black people, because he knows that all I have to do is call a white person a racist and we're going to switch into autopilot and we're going to follow everything that I say. And that's what's dangerous about us as a people. Our ignorance blinds us to no ends, And anytime another Black person tries to wake us up, we then shun that person and push them away.
this is why, like, I heard Vivek Ramaswamy say that the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance,
Yes. Yes.
because when you don't have that self-regulation and that self-governance from the home,
Yep.
you see what you see out here. But yet you have, I'm not trying to turn this into a political discussion about him. You actually have conservatives saying, I don't trust him. I'm like, listen, the stuff this dude is saying and the
Yeah.
mainstream media is got a whole
Right.
lots of problem with it. Nobody with their right mind with that much money would risk all of that to say the things that he's saying unless he actually believed it.
Yep.
So I don't know. This is interesting, but this is crazy to me. So we've talked about the cultural shift that has surrounded the profession of policing, and it saddens me because, like I said, I grew up in a time when even in gritty, rough, gutter New
Yeah.
York City, where the profession of policing was highly respected. In fact, it was coveted. Like,
Yeah.
it was incredibly difficult to get accepted into the New York City Police Academy. I mean, but the testing, the interview
Mhm.
process, I mean, it was several rounds. And like, if you were chosen, you were
Yeah.
like the person in the family, like, he got in. It was just like, it was a big deal
It's an
because it was
honor.
a
Yeah.
very vigorous process. And growing up, like I said, the only people I knew who were getting hemmed up by the police were the ones who were committing crimes, and they were just
Yep.
up to no good. So we've talked about a few things that we believe has impacted this cultural shift. Um, what are your thoughts on this new movement of reimagining? I like going like this: reimagining the police, right? All
Yeah.
these new words, and I've recently learned how the lefticals are using what I have. I'm adopting I'm calling it Luciferian language. My previous guest just
Mm.
dropped all this knowledge on how they're using words and language to push these alternate agendas that don't contribute to or promote human flourishing. When you hear that term, reimagining police, what comes to mind to you?
Um, Depending on who's doing the imagining, we don't need everybody's imagination. And we know right now with the left, everything with their imagination is rainbows and unicorns. And I don't want no part of that in the police force. So here's the thing. This is why I call them word wizards, or we can call them warlocks with words, because
Right.
there's a spiritual component with words, right? And I think we all know that on this channel. Um, and words have power. We know that to be true. The Bible told me so. And so you have to be careful. And so when we're fighting against people who understand this spiritual component, because they incorporate it into their policies, they incorporate it into their marketing, they incorporate these things. And those who have eyes to see and ears to understand, you can see it. You could see, to your point, this Luciferian agenda. It's very obvious. It's so obvious. It's kind of scary how comfortable they've gotten with it. And so reimagining policing. If I'm in charge, I'm going to do it correctly because I know what needs to actually change. I know what needs to be implemented for us to see a shift in the right direction. The problem in this country is that it's profit over people. You know how it works, all the way down to the food we eat, to the pharmacies, all of that.
Right.
They are not concerned with the betterment of this nation. A lot of our leaders are not. They have a corporate agenda. It's capitalism, and it's money first. So think about. I don't think people understand how connected policing is to the structure and functioning of this country. You can essentially, how much money is involved in this thing, and if you are not careful, fixing the problem is going to piss some people off, because correction can cure corruption. And if you cure corruption, you are interfering with someone's money. And so you do have to be careful with that. And the reality is they don't want the problem fixed. So you need to get people, the people have the power. But the problem with the people is the people gave all their power away. And so if we truly want to fix this thing, the people are the ones who are going to have to fix it. And not, we've relinquished so much power to these politicians because we're politically lazy and we don't want to get involved. And so ultimately, people are making decisions for us. It profits them to have the dysfunction. Dysfunction is profitable. Racism is profitable. Death is profitable. And, you know, if it's not broke to them, why would they want to fix it? It's broke to us because we're impacted by it, but to them, it's making them money. But reimagining policing for me is fixing the quality of applicants, fixing the type of crimes we respond to, and then consistent, adequate training, proper training to do the job. And then having a system of disciplinary approach to officers when they violate the rules, policies, and laws, and that they're all held equally, and ensure officers so that if you mess up and you get sued, guess what? You have insurance as an officer, private insurance. You get sued twice and your insurance drops you. You can't go anywhere in this country and work because then you lose your license. And without a license, you can't police nowhere nationwide. I mean, you kill two birds with one stone. Not only are you saving the taxpayer money because they're being paid by the insurance, and all these millions of dollars coming out of the city's budget because these officers are idiots. You know, that gets to stay in the pockets of the people, and so the people will be on board. So there's a way to do it. But now we talk about corporate interests. You have up north, you have these police unions who are in the pockets of the politicians, and so guess what they're going to say? I'm paying you. I paid you to run this campaign. I need you to do what I ask you to do. So there's a lot of nefarious interactions in this country. It doesn't start at police, right? It starts all the way at the top of our government. So we need a reimagined government,
Right.
you know. So as a whole, it doesn't start with policing. It actually starts. You can't fix a corrupt nation when everything from the top is corrupt, you know. So
That sounds like you agree with the drain the swamp.
oh yeah, you got to drain it. I don't even say drain it because where you gonna put it? No, it needs to be you know, it needs to be disposed of. Right. You know, it needs to be disposed of, and then there needs to be things in place, resources in place to prevent this from happening again. Too many career politicians, way too many.
I agree. So I know how I felt when I heard politicians and community activists calling for the idea of defunding the police. Because I've been accused of, oh, you just don't understand that whole movement. You're misrepresenting. And I'm like, okay, well then y'all are the wordsmiths. Defund the police. Tell me what you meant by that. And I've heard some say, well, it doesn't mean that we wanted less police. What we were saying was that we wanted, sorry, when I get my voice, you know, my alternate voice. What they were saying was that they wanted social workers to respond to some of these calls. And I don't know, sometimes I can be black and slow, but where I come from, when something is popping off and I want the police, I don't want to see a social worker. I'm not saying that there's no place. I mean, can we do that at the station? But
right.
There's a crime being committed here. This social worker can't help me. This idiot is trying to cause me harm. What are you gonna do? You're gonna reason and negotiate with this nut? Is that? I mean, are you able to do something? Because this could just be my ignorance coming out. I've heard people say, well, the police are not trained to deal with these mental health issues, and these social workers are. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, if that is truly the case, if the person that is mentally deranged is enacting violence, they need to be restrained. I don't see a social worker being able to do that. I need Tyrone, Big Mike, Luther. I need the police with those kinds of names to pull
Right.
up and get him. And then y'all can talk and rub his back in that squad car all day long. But until we get to that point, I need the police. Am I thinking about defund the police wrong?
No, you're not. So there's two things. Defund the police was created as a way, it was created out of bad faith, and it was marketed as a way to deconstruct and to dissipate policing, right? Like the idea was to tear the actual organization down. In some places, defund the police in some cities was we want to get rid of the police altogether, or we want to remove guns from the police. Every city had their own particular agenda of what defund police meant to them. And then when they got so much backlash about, we want to get rid of the police, we don't think police state sanctioned violence and this, that, they were using all this language, these activists were using, saying that there's no purpose, right? We don't need police anymore. Now, the problem with defund the police is once they started getting a bad rap, what ended up happening was they actually got a lot of backlash for it because the police started pulling back and were like, you know what? Nah. Okay, well, you guys have it. And the next, the criminals took the initiative and went about their way. And they started destroying these cities. Well, then the police stood back and said, okay, well then fine, we'll let you guys do what you do. Now it's the conversation with defund the police is now along the lines of we want to reallocate resources. So the issue is people who have the most to say about this have never done the job. They never done the job. They never worked in the capacity of public service. When people tell me about social workers, we want social workers, we want DFACs and, child protective services show up. They're not getting paid either.
Right.
And not only they're not getting paid, they don't like their job either. Not only that, there's not enough of them to answer these calls. I can tell you that because I've worked with them.
Right.
And so the issue is it's all about quality. It's all about training. It's all about finding the right people to do the job. What we have in this country is we have poorly trained law enforcement officers. Surprisingly, they do actually a really great job despite the low pay and poor and inadequate training. They do a phenomenal job. If you want them to do a better job, since we're complaining about these attitudes, professionalism, and the abuse of power and abusive use of force, if you want those to be reduced significantly, you're gonna have to train them better, pay them better, and that's just what it is. You get what you pay for, and America has shown us that they don't want to invest in policing. We want to compare our policing to other countries. And I'm like, you can't. Some of these countries don't even carry guns. They don't carry guns because their people aren't crazy and running around here shooting everything every
Right,
5
like in
hours.
Japan, Tokyo, they don't even have trash on the ground. They just they think different.
They think different. So when you can't compare any country to the US because the mentality and culture in this country is off the chain. And our moralities and how we look at life and social interactions are just not the same. We don't look at ourselves as a united country. We look at us, we're actually, instead of United States of America, it's more like the divided states of America. Every state is like its own country over here. And so we're not divided on anything. We're divided on almost everything. We're not unified on anything. And so, yeah, it's very disorganized over here. So do we need to reimagine policing? We need to reevaluate how we are policing in this 21st century. We have to reimagine it because policing has not evolved properly over time as it should have. I think that cities and communities are over policed. And I think we need to get to the point where we're educating people how to protect themselves. You know, I think police should respond to only the 7 deadly sins. And I believe that social issues need to be delegated to an organization that handles social issues. So
Give me
I
an
think police.
example, because, like, for example, Music
Mhm.
Man 2005 says social workers respond to people having a mental episode, not gun-toting criminals. Those on the far fringes wanted to eliminate uh, police, but not the majority. Like, what do you like? Okay, and I hear what he's saying, but when you look at the situation that occurred in New York with the Michael Jackson impersonator guy, he was clearly having a mental episode, but he was also violent. So, I heard several people saying that the police shouldn't have been involved with that, and that citizens should not have done what he did because a social worker was needed in that instance. And I'm looking at them like, seriously?
Yeah, people are oblivious to how these things work, and it's not their fault, right? We all think that things are supposed to work a certain way because that's what we feel like it's supposed to happen.
Right.
In reality, a lot of people don't understand the actual intricacies behind these systems. When you start looking at the question is going to be to Mr. Music Man, are you willing to pay a little bit more on your taxes in order to buy to hire additional workers to do these jobs? Are you willing to come out the pocket? These things cost money, and so and not only that, it costs real people. Are we actually creating a society where we are inspiring people to do these jobs? Some of these people are taking these jobs and they're not good at it. Social workers, police officers, people who are, teachers.
Teachers.
These jobs are not, people are not taking them seriously. In countries like Japan, these jobs of services are considered to be honorable jobs. You know why? Because they look at them as being uh, the backbones of society. Teachers are honored and respected because their responsibility is to raise the next generation of thinkers. We don't think like that here in this country. We don't give them the same type of regard and honor and respect. So when these people are doing these jobs, they're mistreated. They get low pay. A lot of people aren't signing up to do the work because they don't like to serve the people. In a situation like this case where the man was killed on the train, we have to remember that we used to have insane asylums, right? There were places for people to go to get proper treatment. They've gotten rid of those things. Here in Atlanta, they closing down hospitals. People don't know where to go to get treatment. This country has a problem with investing in its people, in its country. That is a fact. We have a lot of money that we spend on everything else but the people. That is one of the biggest problems with this country. We are not American first. And this is what you're starting to hear on these campaigns with like Vivek or Trump would say, we are spending billions of dollars on everybody else's problem but our own. A lot of the issues that we have in this country are self-inflicted issues. We could actually fix and change these problems if we actually cared enough about the people that are actually the backbone of this country. So a lot of these issues that we see and the violence and the problems with policing, this is all rooted in poor policies that are implemented by politicians that we ignorantly vote for. That is the truth, because there are a lot of communities that don't have these problems. There are a lot of communities where the police are paid very well, that they have great programs, that they execute their job very well. But then when you look at how they structured it, the pay, the quality of people, they treat people properly. So New York is a blue city, and the policies that come from New York are extremely detrimental to the people. And so it's, again, when you look at the rules, the policies, the law, it all makes sense. It's very
Hold on
plain
one
as
second.
day.
Babe. He was calling him. He
Yeah.
work hard, he be tired. So I was just like,
Mhm.
is there an animal outside?
Yeah.
No, you're right, because
Mhm.
for example, some of the problems that we're dealing with the residual effects of problems that we created. And I know
Yeah.
I'll probably get some backlash for this, but I saw a Music Man, mentioned about, an autistic person in his area. Well, we autism didn't come from nowhere. It has a root cause. We have
Yep.
poisoned our people, our
Yeah, I want to
food
shoot up with them
supplies.
vaccines. Yep.
Between that, we've we we have we have promoted and pushed and legislated for policies that a lot of the American people don't even realize and understand. All of these neurotoxins that we consume in our food, such as formaldehyde,
Yes.
you can thank Donald
Yes.
Rumsfeld for that. There's just so many moving parts and so many
Yes.
layers that I'm like, you wonder why people are crazy? We can look at the pharmaceutical industry and look at
Yep.
the dispensing of these psychotropic drugs that make people want to delete themselves and want to delete other people. We're creating a lot of the issues
Yep.
because, and I'm a capitalist, but I do agree that a lot of our policies and legislative decisions have occurred because we have put profits over people. We don't
Yes.
have the right healthy relationship with capitalism. We're using
Yep.
capitalism to exploit people versus
Yes.
using it the way it was rightfully intended, and designed to function. Free market works when you're not doing it at the expense of harming your own people.
Correct.
Oh, somebody mentioned welfare. Yeah. Listen,
It's deep.
you've kind of hinted a little bit to, the Black community being actively manipulated. But my question is, well, I can pretty much answering my own question. It seems like the level of manipulation is so great and its extent is so far reaching that we're manipulated to participate in our own demise.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the part that is so disheartening. So here's something that I want to ask. We've talked about the problems. It's great for us to talk about the problems. I saw someone mention in the chat, well, what about solutions? And you've kind of talked a little bit about that. But what do you think communities can do to help protect themselves from the influx of crime in many of these communities? Because, like, listen, I pack and take Purple Rain everywhere I go. He is
Purple
always
rain.
with me. And I tell people I keep Jesus in my heart and my 9 on my hip. I don't apologize for
Amen.
that. I am licensed
Amen.
to carry in this state. And I will, some will pop off.
Listen.
I'm prepared,
I,
but
listen.
some people may not feel comfortable with that. But I'm curious
Bless
to know
their
what you
heart.
think.
I'm with you on that one. I'm like, Lord, guide these bullets down in front of me. Let them make contact with the body that is trying to
Right,
bring harm to your child.
right.
And allow him to so gracefully meet you in person, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I think I think you know, we have I know you mentioned the shooter in Florida. People are up in arms about that. I think there's a lack of reality that people have in this country. And again, it's not their fault, right? You're being lied to on a daily basis. And this country, there's nothing sweet about this country. This country is here to make money. They don't care about anything else. You're responsible for your own well being. You're responsible for your own quality of life. You are responsible for your own safety. Just recently, the Supreme Court was like, the police are not responsible to protect you. And people were up in arms. Oh my God, I can't believe. I think there are a lot of people in this country that live in a fairy tale. You guys, it's dangerous here. This is probably, we are a first world country on paper, but a third world country in real life.
Really?
And when you look at the outcomes that this country produces, yeah, the 1% is doing good. You are here to labor for capitalism. Ain't nothing sweet here. The quality of life in America is not great. It's not great. And a lot of people
And
don't
I've
know that
seen
because they
some
don't
other
travel.
countries. I've seen some other countries, and I don't want to be there. Like, I don't want to drink their water. You know,
Yeah, I mean, but that's it.
right.
This is true, but there's a lot of other countries out here where the quality of life is better, right? You know, when you drink water, you're not worrying about what's in it. You know, when you're eating the food, when you can eat the same food somewhere else versus here, the food doesn't taste the same, and lose weight.
I need to find that country because I can't eat American bread, but I've heard that I can eat French bread and be fine.
It's weird, right? You know, I have a friend from France. He eats steak tartare, you know, and it's just raw meat. And he's like, well, we can do that over there because our cows are real. We don't put anything in them, you know. I just think that the reality is it's dangerous here. We have to understand our position in this country. Um, we are at the bottom of the totem pole in this country.
Who's we? When you
We
say we, what do you
black
mean?
people.
Here we are.
We are the we're the economic strength in this country. Let me just put it this way. Black people were to decide to get up and all leave, all 40 million of us. This country, the economy in this country would collapse.
Where we going?
There's plenty of places to go. Plenty of places.
I don't know. I like America. I'd like
We all
it
do.
better. People have asked me like if you could go and live in another country. I struggle to name one.
I mean, but there's nothing wrong with that. But you're not complaining though. You see what I'm saying? So the reality is, you know, we have everything we need to be successful. The issue in this country is the bad actors who are in positions of power that are making rules and policy that are impacting us in a negative way. But the reality, at the end of the day, you know, this country has some issues. It's not as sweet as people like to imagine it to be, and we've pretended so much. We pretended so much that when we get that reality check, it doesn't feel good. You know.
Did you see this here? I've heard him mention this a few times in my comment section, and I'm chuckling. It could be ignorance. I don't know, but I'm curious to know which red states with the highest crime that are red. It sounds like he's trying to build a dichotomy between blue cities and red states, saying that
Right, we're
red
talking cities.
states have more crime than these blue cities.
Yeah, but see, we're talking about cities. We're talking about cities, and preferably, we're talking about the Black community. And we're talking about cities, Black cities that are, a lot of them ran by Black leadership, mayor, city council, they Black police chiefs. We're talking about, and I apologize, Mr. Music Man. We're not being super specific. But we're talking about areas that are ran with Black leadership, that are voted, you know, Democratic based. They're making laws, they control the systems, they control the policies in these areas that should have great outcomes for Black people. And yet we're not seeing that. They're in charge of school boards. You know, we see that here in Atlanta. We had a Black mayor. We got Black police officers. Almost 60-70% of the police department's Black. We have 60% of the school board in Atlanta are Black, but we have poor school outcomes here. You know, we're talking inner city. So I hear what you're saying. We're not trying to say that crime does not exist or high crime does not exist in other states and so forth and so on. This is not what we're saying. We're saying that if we are voting for policies coming from the Democratic Party, and they are saying they have the truth and the knowledge and the wisdom to fix these problems that are impacting the Black community, yet we see historically that they have had free reign in these cities for some of 10 to 20, 30 years, blue, all day, all long. And they have, and historically, we have seen a decline, and nothing that they have implemented has been productive and helpful to Black people or for that city. Then there's a problem with the policies from that city. You just have to look at what's being shown. The truth is in the pudding. You know, we haven't had a Republican mayor in Atlanta for an extremely long time. It's been Democrat for a very long time. And again, you have to correlate policy with outcomes. And that's all we're saying.
So I'm trying to engage with what he's saying. So he's saying you do a Google search and it shows red state. Okay.
I mean, but see the thing, yeah, state. We're talking about cities. We're talking about cities. Again, we're having a micro conversation, not a macro conversation. And so I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying that's not what we're talking about, right?
But
So
that's not what's impacting people that look like me the most.
correct.
The people that look like
Correct.
me the most are concentrated in these cities, and they're run by
Right.
leadership that looks like
That they
them.
voted for. Correct.
I'm struggling to even understand the significance or the validity of this argument. Like Susie Q says, if you take Houston out of the crime statistics in Texas, this red state, and Texas is almost purple these days, but take Houston out, now you got a red state, but the crime drops down. So
Yep. And who's in
Georgia,
Houston?
we used to be red, but we're purple now. And I've lived here almost 30 years. No, 20. Who am old, Father? 25, 26 years. And it was never this city, even though when I got here, it was run by all African Americans. They had a different mindset and a different worldview. And this was the black Mecca. Like if you were black and you came to this city, you knew you could come here with $1 and a dream and you was gonna be something in 5 years. And that's just a fact.
And you know what happened? And you know what happened? You know what changed that?
What?
You know what changed that? Atlanta had this positive view where it was the black professional Mecca. And you know what happened? Media, social media, rappers, hip hop. It became the epicenter for ratchetness, hood behavior, gangs, rap music. It became the epicenter for that negative, the almost you would say kind of like that the negative side of our community that then replaced that professional image that was once Atlanta. Yeah, and it ruined it. Now all Atlanta housewives, the real doctors of Atlanta, all that. You got these top professionals who are making millions of dollars, who are acting like children, who are acting like, you get what I'm saying? So now that has created this image, but what has it done is attracted that same type of mentality and behavior from other black cities. You got people from Detroit, from New Orleans, from Boston coming down here because they want to live this hip hop lifestyle. And what's come with that? Violence, gangs, and death. Sex, murder, and mayhem is what has evolved from that. Trafficking, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's get into these questions. You saved some questions up there?
Yeah, I do. Let me get
tackle
to
some of
them.
these questions.
All right. So, and these are some really, really
Ooh,
old ones. So YV wanted to know, why are we so easily emotionally manipulated as a group, or could not do that, or you could not do that with anyone else? Where is our discernment?
I think this is a spiritual problem within our community. I would say, again, the greatest form of governance comes from in the home. That's why a lot of the attacks on black people and the black community has always started in the home. So when you look at Black Lives Matter, what they stood for and things like that, everything goes into breaking down the home. That's where your strength is. That's where your power is. One could also say the absence of faith. You know, when you believe that you're governing your own actions and you're not answering to a higher power, regardless of what your religion is, then guess what? You're out here running around unprotected and with no real moral guidance. So what is guiding your actions and behavior? Too much of our community is falling to the wayside to worshiping rocks, Skittles, and moon and zodiac
and
signs.
ourselves. You know,
And
when
ourselves.
you're told you're
I'm
a god.
I'm a god. I'm a goddess. Right? I'm Egyptian. Everybody think that they are descendant from Imhotep or somebody, Pharaoh, right? So again, this delusion. The lack of culture has created this vacuum and desire to attach ourselves to things that aren't even of us. And so it's this desire to belong to something that's greater than we are. Then you have people who use our pain for profit. And because we want a black messiah so bad that anybody who comes out here and starts sounding real good, like a Dr. Umar Johnson,
He
like
don't
a
sound that
Tariq,
good.
he be saying some stuff that's necessary. His actions, his follow through is a little problematic. But again, what is he? These guys are word wizards, right? And they casting spells with these words, and we just eat them up because we want a savior so bad instead of saving ourselves. Because saving yourself requires accountability. You want someone else to lead you. You want someone else to be responsible for you. You want someone else to tell you what to do, but you want them to tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to know. And that's the problem.
Ah, that's good right there. This goes back to a little bit of your story. Chicken Grease wanted to know, what was your premonition before joining the force, or something you learned or unlearned since being a part of the force?
That's a great question, actually. I got into policing by accident. I mean, accident in my mind, right?
Oh, okay.
But to me, it wasn't something I was intending to do. Someone said, "Hey, you have a great personality. I like the way you're well respected." I used to work in the hospital. I think you have the right type of heart. I think you'd be great to do the job. I went into the academy and I hated it. I think it was like 3 months in. I was going to quit like twice.
Really?
Yeah, I was going to quit like twice, and I finished. I didn't like taking orders. I didn't like being like, it was weird. Yeah. I didn't like taking orders from this. It's different. It's a whole different profession. It's not what people think. It's a brotherhood, right? And you're responsible for each other. That's how we were raised in our academy, and it was difficult. Like, I could never see myself joining the military. I love the military. I respect them for making that sacrifice, because I know my bones are bones. I don't have the heart or the courage. I won't say the courage. I just always felt like I was just too much of an individual to be.
Right.
And you get what I'm
Some
saying?
pop off, you out. You like, I'm supposed to go
I
get
ain't trying to.
somebody.
But I appreciate the sacrifice that they make. I love our military, the good ones. And so to me, it was difficult coming together and creating that bond with strangers, being punished together. I didn't do that. Well, you all for one, one for all, give me 100.
That's what it was like? You got all punished together?
Yeah, we all get punished together. And so every academy is not the same, but mine was, we're built to be more of a family, cohesive unit. So almost quit twice. I didn't like that. I was, getting up early. It was a lot of just yelling, a lot of drama. I was like, man, this ain't for me, but I stuck with it. And I fell in love with the feeling of saving lives and helping others. There's no greater feeling than the feeling of serving people in need. I'm telling you, it just does something to you. I got addicted to helping people, to be honest. It feels so good, so that's a great question. Something I learned and unlearned, that
I'm sure you learned that people were wicked. Like, inherently in our hearts, we're just not good people. Humans.
that the world is broken. This country, the people are so broken. And there's so much hurt, there's so much pain out here, and people don't have the help. And some things are self-inflicted, but some people are really just struggling out here. And you see it because I go in these homes. I see these people who making all this money. I see these perfect wives and husbands, these perfect marriages that you think are perfect. I get to go in their home and see what's really going on. It's you see the truth of the world when you do this job, and it will shock you, to blow you away, and it'll give you a heart of compassion and empathy if you have the right heart yourself. Yeah, it changed my whole worldview, to be honest.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing. Feel free, you guys, leave your questions. I'm starring them as I find them. Someone else said, now this is not a question, it's more of a statement. We don't want equal rights. We want special treatment. Do you agree with
Yeah,
that?
fact. Yeah, I think Black people think that special treatment means uh, that's like a form of reparations, right? Like to them, what he's saying is we don't want equal rights. He's referring to the comment that I made about like Black privilege.
Right.
So he's saying we don't want equal rights, we want special treatment. No, we do. I think that the justification in our minds is that because of what happened in slavery, we deserve to have special treatment. And I disagree because that within itself is racist, right?
I agree. This is not, I don't believe Mr. Ellison is still here, but he says lots of cops are biased and don't know it. And I'm like, how do we discern? How do you? The scriptures say that the heart is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And I find it so interesting that you can't even discern your own heart, let alone someone else's. So
True.
how do you know that cops are biased and yet they don't know it? Like how are you held accountable for something and you like I am? I don't know. Would
The
you
only thing we
agree,
can
disagree with that?
There's truth to it. There's truth to it. There's all of us are biased. We all have biases, right? So for example, I always use this as an example to kind of help people understand. I say, what's the difference between a homosexual, a heterosexual, a pedophile, a rapist, a murderer, a thief, a Christian, an atheist, and a devil worshiper? What's the difference? There is none. They all wear a police uniform. With that being said, am I a better police officer because I'm a Christian and my partner is an atheist, or my partner is a Muslim? I knew an officer who was a devil worshiper, right? She practiced witchcraft and she was a police officer. Should she not be allowed to police? Should this atheist, do you need to be a Christian to be a police officer? Or are Christians better cops than an atheist cop? That's the question. I don't know, right? The reality is, when this person polices, are they going to look at the law, or are they going to filter the law through their morals and personality? What tends to happen is some people filter their law through their egos, through their morals, through their personality. And that's the bias. Some people are able to turn that off. I'm able to serve a person as a Christian who might be homosexual. I'm serving a person who just got out of jail for sexually assaulting children, right? I'm serving a person who has, who I've served people who practice witchcraft in their home. I walked in there, had to say a prayer, right?
Yeah.
I cannot just serve you because we have a difference in belief. I walked right over that salt I saw on the ground. I said, Lord, protect me.
Like,
I see chicken bones and all kind of stuff hanging around. And I had to convince this person not to throw curses on their neighbor because they were mad because they were playing the neighbor. Let me give you a short story. The neighbor was having a lot of company, consistently playing loud music, and the witchcraft person was like, I've asked them plenty of times to do this. They came out, cursed me out, disrespected me. And then the neighbor called the police because she found dead animal bones in her yard. Now, I know what that means because I'm well read, right? Spiritually. So I'm seeing it. Officer, can you I'm not touching that, man. I'm not, ma'am, I know what that is. You know what I mean? My parents are Jamaican. I know what that stuff is. You know what I'm saying?
I know
I'm over here like, Lord, please come over here. spirit up out of here. So guess what I have to do? Now I'm like, ma'am, listen, I see what's going on over here. Officer, can you go next door and talk to her? I'm in my mind, I'm like, no. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to go over there. I knock on the door real quick, and I'm like, I guess she's not here. Here go the door. Right, the door open up. Is there everything okay, officer? I'm like, yes, ma'am. I got a call about some issues that you were having with your neighbor, a little dispute. Oh, officer. She looks out the door. She's looking around. Officer, how about you come inside so we can talk about it? I'm like, in my mind, guess what? All my Holy Spirit senses are tingling.
Right.
And she's like,
Susie Q said, I'm going to pray from here.
Come inside. Come inside. So I don't want people to know you're out here. In my mind, I'm like, Lord, I look down. I see the powder on the. I said, Jesus Christ. I said, Lord, guide me, protect me. I prayed every morning before work. I'm always covered. Always covered. But I had to get a double prayer before I step up in this joint. I said, Lord, I know I prayed earlier, but I'm about to run it back.
Right.
And I walked in her home, right? Because she's right. Now, mind you, this is what I'm talking about. This is what he's talking about. Biases. This is what we're talking about. I'm walking into the home. I know my faith. I'm not here to start no problems. And I'm definitely not going to walk out with no gins on me. You get what I'm saying? So I'm in here and we're talking. Oh, officer, would you like a drink of tea? Hell no. I don't want none of that potion, yo. Give me that.
Nate, like, I got spit. I'm good.
I'm good. So I see her. She has a shrine. She has a black figure of a guy that she worships in there. And I later went home and did some research. It was in reference. She was a part of this cult. That they're worshiping some guy from whatever. You know, I can't even remember. It was so long ago. Right. But anyways, I had to serve her. And I served her with distinction. I made sure that I took her request seriously. I investigated it. And actually, she was in the right. Her neighbor was in the wrong. So, of course, after I got done talking to her, you know, well, yes, ma'am, I appreciate you. I said, ma'am, you know what? I'm going to go over there and handle that because she was playing this loud music. She was disturbing the peace. Right. Ma'am, here's my card. Any issues that you have, you call me. I'm coming back here and I'm going to handle that. I said, if you have any problems, I'm going to cite her. I'm going to talk to her about it. I said, but in the meantime, you know, she's saying some bones of animals were in her yard. I don't know. Somebody could have been at Popeyes and dropped some, you know, Popeye chickens off in the yard. I don't know.
You don't know nothing about that, do you, man?
I don't know nothing about it. All I'm saying is, respectfully, I know you guys are neighbors. You guys have to work things out. I said, but let me talk to her. I'm explaining to her that she's in violation. You know, I'm going to just give her a warning. But, you know, you guys have to live here, you know, so let's try our best to communicate and be respectful to one another. And I think everything will work out. She said, officer, thank you so much. She reached and touched me on the shoulder. I was like, Lord, hold that shoulder strong. You know what I mean? I said, you know, and I'm like, ma'am, thank you so much. You know, and if anything, you need anything, you know, just let me know. Officer, right. I appreciate you. Just so polite. And she had on like this weird gown. She was walking. It looked like she was floating on the air. Like it was everything was weird.
She was off into it.
Listen, I stepped out the house, shook a little prayer on the brother real quick. Took it off me. I went next door, said what I said. I went to the lady. I said, hey, ma'am, listen here, okay? She got something in the house that'll shut all this down, okay? She'll shut it all down. I just respect what she's saying. Keep the music down. Because she might hit you with some juju that'll have you looking like poo-poo, okay? So I just keep it cool. Everything was good, never had any problems, never had to go back. But again, it's just a reminder that the world is made of a lot of different people. Right. And these same people have children. And these children go to school with your children. These children grow up to have jobs. And some of these jobs, they put uniforms on or they work in a hospital, right? And so again, we can't be so oblivious to think that everybody's going to think like us. Everybody's not cut from the same stone. All police officers are not created equal. They are people who were raised by racists. There are people who were raised by homosexuals, people who were raised by atheists, raised by this. Everybody's different. It's a diverse profession. I cannot stress that enough. And I know some Christian cops that act like the devil.
Yes, Lord.
And I know atheist cops who will give you the clothes on their back. So again, we can't be so quick to judge. I always say, judge me by my behavior, not by who you think I am. And let your behavior be the indicator of who you are as a person. And that's honestly the God honest truth. You don't know a person till you know how they act, till you see them in action. And so that's just, I know that's a little long, so but I just had to share that. But that's we're gonna have to have another show and tell you about some spiritual stuff that I've encountered in this job.
I want to hear all of it right now. I want to acknowledge some of these super chats because some of them are
let's do it. Go ahead.
Questions. Clarity Speaks. Thank you so much for that super chat. She says the problem is not that anyone is biased, aka preference. We are all biased. The issue is, what are our biases rooted in? Truth or goodness, or what we prefer to be truth? Key is maturity to suspend bias. I absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much for those super chats. I see Uncle Stu is in the house. I had no idea you knew who he is. Yeah.
Uncle Stu.
Right. Thank you, Uncle Stu, for that super chat. He just wanted to say salute to my sister and baby brother in the house. Great interview. He was very, very helpful to me on I was having some issues on a previous live stream, and he just kind of reached out and was like, "Hey, if you need any help with OBS, hit me up." But I moved on from OBS because it just was too stressful. I couldn't do it.
It's too much, yeah. OBS
it was too much. Pookie and them wants to know: is there a ticket quota in Atlanta?
Shout out to Pookie. Shout out to the
That's
Pookie.
my dude.
Shout out to the Pookies. There's not a ticket. So the ticket thing is kind of a myth. What there is, though, there's no ticket quota. Unfortunately, ticket-based policing is a revenue generating system. So it is highly encouraged that they tell you to write tickets, right? So that's a fact. Is there a quota? No, because that's against the law. But they have a traffic unit. Majority of large police departments have a traffic unit, and the traffic unit has to have they require them to have a minimum of tickets written because that's reflection of their job performance. So if you are your sole job is traffic enforcement, then their expectation is that you've enforced traffic laws. And the only way to see that you enforce traffic laws is through your citations. But 90% of the police department, absolutely not, no ticket quota. Traffic unit, they have an expectation to write citations, and they write a lot of them.
I mean, that makes sense. So I'm glad I know that now. When I see him on
I
the side of the road, I'm like, that's a traffic enforcement. I need to be doing. Let me slow. Well,
that's right.
You don't have to worry about when March comes around. I will be renewing before my birthday because I really thought I had to the end of the month. Mr. Music Man wanted to know, what's your position on constitutional carry? Some officers are for and some are against. I have family in law enforcement that have differing opinions.
I'm for it because at the end of the day, you still, if I'm not mistaken, you still have to be, you can't be a convicted felon and carry a weapon. So constitutional carry, all it does is eliminate all that in-between work, getting a permit and doing this, doing that. You just have a right as a citizen to bear arms, which I agree 100%. I think constitutional carry should be a common sense law and nationwide in this country.
Yeah, I'm glad. I believe we got that in Georgia. I was really excited about that. Mm-hmm. This is a question probably more so for me. Any biblical Black pastors you would recommend asking for Black family members? Okay, so this is all right. So it's not that I'm not going to answer it, but I want to leave room for this possibility. Because I'm a believer. I am a Christian. Partiality as it relates to ethnicity is not something that I'm supposed to do. So if I have, let's say if I'm a biracial person or I'm a white person and I have Black people in my family and they're asking me for a Black pastor, my question to them is, well, why do they need to be Black? If we're all, according to
Up on the
Galatians,
same stone.
we're no longer slave or free, Jew or Greek, male or female, we're one in Christ Jesus. Why is the request on the basis of ethnicity? I'm not saying, my thing is, for the Bible believing Christian, you need to be looking for a church that is biblically sound and faithful to scripture, where they are going to preach the whole counsel of God. They are going to preach the gospel indiscriminately, and they're faithful to the text, and that they are a loving community of like-minded believers. Our unity is on the basis of who we are in Christ, not these
Correct.
existential realities of our skin. And so if you have
Correct.
Black family members, I would say the priority shouldn't be a Black pastor. It should be who is the most theologically sound and has biblical fidelity to the scriptures, that are going to preach the text, convict me of sin when needed, and strengthen and edify me in my walk as a Christian. That's what I would say. Now, if you just want to know for the sake of knowing, okay, I would say I'm going to give you my top 5 orthodox, biblically sound, and you've probably never heard them, because those that are faithful shepherds, they don't get a lot of notoriety. Now, Vodi Bakum is someone that does get a lot of notoriety, and he is highly melanated. He is very doctrinally sound. He's currently not pastoring. He's currently the dean, the dean of admissions or academics in a seminary in Africa. But if you Google Vodi Bakum on YouTube, you will not have any shortages of hearing from Dr. Bakum. Next on that list is a personal favorite of mine. He happens to be my former pastor. I know you're like, well, if he's that great, why are you a former pastor? It's a long story. I moved. I don't want to talk about it. It's going to make me sad. But Pastor Rogers W.F. Skeppel pastors a church right here in Atlanta, Berean Bible Baptist Church, one of the coldest exegetes this side of the Mississippi. I mean, he is a faithful shepherd and a amazing Bible expositor. He is not getting in that pulpit to tell you how he feels or what his opinion is. He's going to tell you what thus saith the Lord, and he's going to take you deep into the kitchen. Like, you're not going to walk out of there having something left that you can squeeze out the text. Like, you're not going to experience that with him. Another Black pastor that I absolutely love, who is no longer alive, but his legacy lives on, Elder DJ Ward. Elder DJ Ward used to pastor a church in Kentucky called Main Street. Was it Main Street? I think that was the name of his church. You can YouTube him a little bit. Elder DJ Ward, fascinating pastor. He kind of slow drag in the pulpit a little bit, but he gonna get you there. He gonna get you there. And I would also say, dang, they gotta be Black. Black. Okay. H.B. Charles down in Florida, faithful Bible expositor. Another one down in the Bahamas. His name is Jonas Hensworth. He's faithful shepherd, biblically sound. Myru Spivey, Keenan Ackerson.
You got these names memorized.
I know a lot of pastors that are just they're good people. What is his name? He's one of my Facebook friends. Just celebrated a birthday. Don't worry about it. I'll leave it. I'll pin it. This is important, Nathan. Give me.
I was about to say no. I was gonna ask you. Yeah, I was gonna ask if you could send it to me. But if you pin it, that'll be fine. I'll be curious.
I'll send them to you, and I will pin it as a comment when we end this live stream, Shelly. But yeah, I don't have any distinctions when it comes to a faithful Bible teacher. I don't care if you're purple. Like I want to. If I'm hungry for the word, I just want to hear the word. I don't want your theatrics, your light show, how fly your sneakers are. I don't care about any of that. I care about What do you do with the text? And are you? Don't tickle my ears. Like I don't want to hear none about season, harvest, favor, breakthrough, or increase. I don't want to hear about that. I
So
want
you
to.
don't like those? You don't like those pastors that'll put spit on your face and
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you can't give me a Bible chapter and verse in context, explain to me why you spit on my face, I'm a slap you. You spit on me, we gonna fight. Sanctification is gonna go out the window. I'm from the south side of the kingdom. I don't play that.
Oh
Don't
my
spit
God.
on me. No, that is nasty. You are not Jesus in no. Jesus the only
Right.
one that could
Your
throw some
saliva ain't
spit.
healing nothing over here.
Right. Yeah. I probably would have squirmed if Jesus did it, but then again, if I was blind and
Oh.
wanted to see, I would have probably been okay with it. I can't. Oh, Conrad and Bayway. That's a good one. Thank you. Conrad is good. HB, Elder Ward, Kevin La Ewing is a great. I'm not familiar with him. I gotta look him up. I would even put Bishop Patrick Wooden on there. I'm not Kojic, but I rocks with Bishop Wooden. He's cool people. And then, huh? Okay, my husband said that's enough. He's like, I'm doing too much. You always gotta have your man here to reel you in. Reel you in. I'm reeling, sweetheart. I'm reeling.
About to meet him.
I knew there
He
were
sound
some other questions. Let me go back to the top and see if I can find them. Oh, please ask him if he has a book or is planning to write one.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I started writing during COVID, during my recovery. Writing was a way that my therapist said was a good way to heal. And so I started by journaling, and then it turned out to I wanting to tell a story about my life. And what came from that was you guys have to think about it from this way. The way I looked at the situation at the time was that I almost died. And so my fear in the moment was, or after the fact, was that if I would have passed away, I would have passed away with a lot of things on my heart, on my mind, on my spirit that I never had an opportunity to share or pass down to my family.
Right.
And I don't have any kids at the moment. And so I thought about, you know, what if I would have died in that moment and I never had the opportunity to have children? And then I started to think, well, dang, what if I had children and then I passed away early and never had a chance to raise those children? And so I wanted to create something that would outlive me. And so the best way to do that would be to write a book. And so that I could tell my story for generations to generations. So that's what actually inspired me to want to write. I started journaling, telling some of these stories, just like how the one I told you about the woman with the
The witchcraft.
who was doing witchcraft. I want to be able to share that story because, even like I have nephews who are becoming young adults now, they don't know a lot of those stories. So it's cool to be able to have that. And they could say, hey, our uncle, this is his journey. This was his experience. And be able to share that and be proud about those sacrifices and just experiences that I had. So that's a great question.
Okay, cool. Bernard asked me, he said, what's wrong with Kojic? Okay, it's a twofold question. It's nothing inherently wrong in the sense that there's a small segment of Kojic pastors that I know of that I would actually listen to. I have fundamental issues with just the direction of some Kojic pastors, not all, right? Like I said, I absolutely love and adore Bishop Patrick Wooden. My best friend growing up was Church and God in Christ. I'm very much closely connected to that community. I just went to a funeral yesterday at a Kojic church. The gospel was preached. Like I was like, he brought it. He did. He did not shy away from the truth of the gospel. He wasn't there to placate anybody in their sin. It was a loving gospel presentation that had the right balance of yes, we are mourning here, but unless you are justified by grace through faith in Christ alone, you will die in your sin. So it's not that. I don't run in that circle, and I don't know. I mean, if you know some theologically strong Kojic pastors, I'm not opposed to it. It's just I'm a Baptist, so and I got issues with a whole lot of Baptist preachers too. So that doesn't really mean anything. I'm looking for something very specific. I like them really unemotional, dry and boring, right? Because I want to worship with
Straight
my
to the word.
mind and
Right.
not my emotions. I want to think deeply about the scriptures and apply them to my life. I don't really like a lot of topical. I like, if we're gonna be in the book of Acts, I want us to be in the book of Acts for the next year. Like, preach through the whole book. Don't be in Zechariah one week and in Revelation the next, and then you're in Genesis. It's difficult for Christians to grow in their grace and knowledge of God. That's why so many of us are theologically weak and ignorant, because we've never had the scriptures taught in context, because you're just picking out one verse and then you camping out there, and then you end up sounding like Jamal Bryant. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you've listened to this channel enough, no, you already know how I feel about that. So,
well, this goes back to what I said earlier about how we there's a video, if you guys haven't seen it, I urge the audience to go and look it up. It's called How to Market to a Negro. And when you look at the psychosis behind the breakdown, it all makes sense. What a lot of scammers and pimps and pastors, what they know is how to market to us. They know we like that razzle dazzle, they know we like to be entertained. We like to laugh. That's why when we have the speakers who are very well at speaking, very articulate, you'll see them telling jokes, and right, they know how to tickle the ears of Black people. If you can master that, you can master the Black wallet. And so you have that. So to what you're saying is absolutely correct. My church that I go to now, I stumbled upon it by accident. I just went by word of mouth. But when I went there, I didn't know the pastor was white. Now, I'm a firm believer. I should be able to go in any Christian church and feel at home. Doesn't matter what the pastor looks like. And this is my first time at a church where the pastor was white. And I fell in love with the church, not because of the pastor, but because of what the environment that the pastor helped create. Right. And so I say that to say, the other churches that I grew up going to, there was always some cartwheeling guy going around doing stuff, throwing stuff around. There's always some theatric. What I like about my pastor is that it felt like I was in a classroom. Felt like I was learning, like literally, like you're sitting down, you're having a conversation, they're teaching. It was very organized, very structured. It was like we're 1 month, we're on a particular topic, particular concept of understanding for you to grasp. I've learned more in that church in the course of a year than I've learned throughout any church that I've been to and so it was just that it was just structured differently, and it actually resonated with me personally and my ability to understand. And so I'm with you on that. I like to receive the word in a particular way. I don't need to be razzle dazzle to invest spiritually. And so, unfortunately, that is a thing within a segment of our community where if you're not, I can't take out. I don't do the shouting. No disrespect. Some people like that. I don't like being yelled at while I'm trying to learn. I don't. I can't do all that. Like, to me, it's too much. Like, I'm not here to watch a play. This seems like it's a what is this, a theater? Like I don't get it. I honestly, I just can't put it together. And that's me personally. It's no.
I'm laughing because I grew up the opposite of what I'm saying and what you're saying.
Yeah, Baptist, right?
I grew up. All I knew the only way I knew how to connect to a faith was an emotional. It had to be emotional. I needed the theatrics. Like that's very much a part of who I am. But when I met my husband, I had never met a person that was just like, I don't want to see no cartwheels. If they put their hand on me and throw me down, I'm punching them in the throat.
Right.
Like I was just like, what is wrong with I didn't understand it
Yep.
until he challenged some of my deeply held presuppositions. He was like, what is happening? When all that is happening, he was like, this is just a show. Like, I don't like that. And I used to think that he was not spiritual. Now, mind you, I wasn't even a believer. I was a churchian. I was just going because it was my religious activity. But my husband was the one that was like you. He was just like, no, like, I don't. When they start flipping, I'm out. I don't know. He was like, this is chaos.
And that's why they struggle. One of the many reasons they struggle in Black churches to keep men in the church, you know, because a lot of times they're pandering to who? They're pandering to women. You know, when you want to move the audience emotionally, men aren't moved like that. You'd be like, bro, what are you doing? I need you to go back to Psalms 5, sir.
Right? Can we
finish Psalm 5? So it becomes a thing. And then you in here and you be like, man, we still in this building. We've been building this building since '95, sir. So it gets old, you know. It gets old, and again, you have a lot of men who can point out the BS, and so. So I grew up on a singing and preaching.
Right, but a lot of men can see the BS, but they don't say anything because of the women in their lives. They know if they, I mean, they would.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it was a struggle at the beginning of our marriage, but it was definitely.
Yeah.
Now maybe it was
contention. Yeah, it creates. Yeah, because could you imagine a lot of times? And I think this is great because a lot of times men we prefer peace over problems. And so a lot of times in our community, we just don't want the drama. So it's better to kind of we settle on so many issues as it relates to relationships. It's just easier to keep our peace. We rather not say anything at all. That's why men will walk away and leave the church and not say anything. And the folks will be like, where are all the men at in the church? And whatever. It's because it's not worth the argument. You know, I tried to pull a sister from the church one time and she just drove me crazy. It was a nightmare to deal with, you know, because she's just too indoctrinated, unfortunately, too much within our church, within Christianity. Some of these churches turn into like cults almost, you know, cults. And it's sad, you know, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is.
That is so funny that you say. Every time I hear someone say something like that, my husband told me this story. I think he told me this story to either put me on alert to like, if you try this, that's gonna happen to you. He said he went to church with this one girl, and out of nowhere, she pulled this big old tambourine like out of her purse, and he was trying to figure out like, did they give you that? Like, where did you get that from? What are you doing? Because she was like off into it. And he was just like mortified. And I was like, well, what's wrong with that? And he was looking at me like, you're not in the band, ma'am.
Yeah. Doing too much. Doing way too much.
Just doing too much. To me, that
much.
was normal. I was just like, she was just worshiping. He was like, no. He was like, had I known she left the house with that.
I'm going to say this, and this is controversial. There's a reason why the snake went after Eve.
That ain't controversial. That's.
I didn't know how your audience was. I didn't want to.
Eve was deceived, not Adam. It was Eve that was deceived.
I'm just saying. So you know, there's truth to that. And again, remember what I said earlier is that these spiritual games and tactics are still being used today. They just look different. So when we see Black Lives Matter and these other proactive groups, who do you see out here in the streets with their fist out all the time, marching up and down, talking about police reform? Black women. Who are leading the charge? Black women. You see a lot of, they're going after women. The Democratic Party is going after women because, unfortunately, a lot of our women are easily manipulated emotionally, and they believe that if they can pull the women away, and again, we even look at slavery, how it was done with slavery. If we teach women how to raise these new generation of slaves, they will raise them because they want to protect them, right? So what do? They go after the women. Why? Because women are in charge of passing down culture. So if I can convince the women to teach these young boys that they just birthed to be submissive to our white authority, then we're not going to have any problems. They didn't go after the men. The men were ready to fight. They went after the women because the women were in here talking and coaching the men to be docile, because they were afraid. What do we see in that video earlier? You see the majority of the women teaching their kids how to be fearful of the police. So there's these guys who are in charge of this thing, operating this thing. They're experts in psychological warfare, and that's what we're seeing today. So not to blame women, I'm just saying, a lot of you guys are the best way for them to carry out the destruction of our community. It's not that it's your fault. It's just that, it's an easy way in.
No, I'm not.
And
I'm
so,
not offended. We're not offended at all because I mean, theologically speaking, it was Eve that was deceived, not Adam.
Mhm.
And so, an uncovered, unprotected woman is incredibly vulnerable. And
yes,
this is not even has anything to do with policing, but I'm always curious to know if it's like we know this, but if women don't even recognize that we are vulnerable and we are at least willing, open, and honest to say, you know what, let me go back to my where it's safe and my shelter, because out here left to myself, I'm very smart and very capable and very intelligent. It's not that. I just know left to myself, I'm probably gonna do something real stupid. So and it's difficult to say that without sounding as if I'm a dodo brain, and it's not that.
it's
It's
not
just
that.
because
Yeah,
men are more logical, y'all see things in a different way, whereas women, we are going to appeal, it's going to pull on the heartstrings, and then we're going to appeal out of emotion, void of
correct.
the reason in that moment. And I consider myself a one of the least emotional women I know, meaning I can look at a situation and make a proper category distinction and be like, nope, that's not what he said. You're arguing something that was never said. That is not what he said. He said this. Versus, some women, they hear information and it goes through the filter, and what comes
Mm,
out is like, I didn't say that. How did you walked away with that?
right.
So if I know it listen, it's rough being y'all. I'll just say that.
It's and that's why we're supposed to be together. You know what I mean? We're supposed to balance each other out. There are things that men absolutely need women for. And so we are essentially, we're supposed to be yoked together for a reason. We bring balance, and we're operating outside of our biological and even our spiritual nature. We're gonna get into some stuff, right? And it's just the reality of it. But it is what it is. But
Right.
for the most part.
I don't think we have any more questions. Let me see. Yeah, Pookie and him is right. I feel so funny calling him that. I know his government name, but
Pookie,
Second Timothy 3:6. They are the kind who worm their way into homes and gain control over gullible women. Facts. That is very, very, very true. So
very, very
I am
scripture.
hoping, Mr. Daly, that you would
Hmm.
strongly consider codifying all of your journal entries on and turning it into some sort of body of work. I think it's important for, in light of your policing career, and then now being, on this end of not actively policing anymore and just kind of trying to add value to that conversation, you should publish a book. All my subscribers would buy it. You should publish a book. Consider it. Put it on the radar. I don't know. I
Absolutely.
think it would be good. Or another idea. Well, I was gonna say I think it's important for, even at the not the collegiate level, the grade school level, for them to
Mhm.
hear an actual police officer say some of the things you're saying. But I don't know how it is working your way into these leftical school systems. I don't know.
Yeah, I've thank you for that. And it's definitely on my agenda. I think I'm always curious to know, when does a story stop? When you're writing, when do you decide to kind of cap it off? But I just continue to write and talk about those pivotal moments throughout this journey of policing, the things that led, um, what has kind of cultivated the character that I have today, that has helped me do the job that I did, the life lessons that I've learned in those moments, and then policing through some of the most turmoil times in policing in this country in this 21st century. So the rise of Black Lives Matter, what that looked like, how it was policing in that time frame, how it was policing with the Black president, and how that impacted the journey. There's so much. So to your point, yeah, I definitely want to do that. I think it will be a great body of work. And I volunteer my time. I speak at events. I speak at like private schools. I speak at recently I spoke at there's an organization called Boys Becoming Men, and they have a summer program where they do, like, at a camp. It's over 100 plus kids. I had the opportunity to speak with them for 2 hours. So as I'm growing, especially as a content creator, it has opened the doors for a lot of opportunities to share my story, and then also to give and impart wisdom. I want to get my channel to a point to where it's large enough to where my voice can echo in rooms that other officers can't go into, and being able to advocate for officers who can't speak on the things that I can speak on. So that's the power of the channel. Eventually, I want to get to a point where it's a household name, to have these, and people come over to have the conversation. We have a lot of difficult and sensitive conversations on my channel. Even those who don't like the police, they appreciate the banter, they appreciate the back and forth, and have someone that they can actually bounce their questions off of. And then one thing that people do realize, and what they have recognized, is that even if they don't like the police, they respect and appreciate the fact that I'm willing to have the conversation, and that I'm going to give them an honest and truthful response. And I think that's what we need in our community. Someone that we can trust, that if they are saying something as it relates, even if we don't like how it sounds, that we can appreciate and respect the words that are coming, and that we know that it's coming from a place of a good heart. And I think that's what we're missing. Someone that we can, like, look at and say, no, this, I don't like it, but I know it's coming from a good place. And that all makes a difference, in my opinion.
Right. Well, you guys, I need you to hop on over after this live stream to Nathan's channel. It's Real Nathan Daley. If you're trying to do the @ but if you just type in Nathan Daley, you will see it. He has some of the most riveting discussions. He talks about a wide range of topics. And it really is a very interesting channel that I would love for you guys to go and support. You will learn so much new from the perspective of law enforcement, even just on the culture, just trying to listen to another voice with another perspective, step outside of your box, broaden your horizon. I want to encourage you guys to do that. So definitely subscribe to his channel. It looks like me and him are at a race. I'm right at 20. I think I'm about to hit 21, and you're already at 21. So I just think it's been wonderful for you to join me. I have no idea how long. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. See, you are the one that do 7-hour lives.
I told you. I told you. It's my fault. I ain't gonna lie.
Nathan, we don't do that over here. 3 hours and
It's my fault.
3.5 hours is a record. And the fact that 49 people are still here, I wouldn't have still been here. I'd be like, I'll catch the part 2 on the replay. But I love my day ones, my moderators, my subscribers. This has been a great discussion, and I appreciate your honesty and your willing
Thank
to
you.
come on this platform. I know it's a little outside of your norm, but you did a phenomenal job in terms of educating us on your perspective.
Thank
And
you.
Pookie said it was a great discussion. So when Pookie say it's good, it's good.
That's what's up.
Awesome. Well, you guys, we have reached the end of my rope because I ran out of water, and it's like it's not late, but it feels late to me because
Listen, we might as well do 4 hours. You tripping? We might as well do 4 hours.
I will let you go. You can stay on this channel and do 4 hours.
We're gonna do the after party. April
Listen.
gotta go. We're gonna do the after party, y'all. We're gonna do the after party. April gotta go.
Y'all can
It's
go
cool.
and hop on over to Nathan's channel for the after party. When you over 40, you start yawning and sweat. Listen, my powder done worn off. My it's over. It's over for me. I can't do no more. Let me see. Do I have any? We hopping over. God bless you, Nathan, and of course, Sister April. Yeah, see, they gonna go to your channel. So if you wanna start up a stream, you are free to do so. I won't even care. I'll see y'all tomorrow and watch the replay. I was just thinking. I said, "Wow, new record for it." Right? I ain't never been long this live this
Listen,
long.
I'm honored. I feel honored. First of all, this was an amazing conversation, and I'm honored that I was able to bless your live stream with the 3+ hours. It shall never be done again. Never be done.
You right. You ain't got to tell me, but what?
It was a good conversation. It was good. Well, technically, the first 10 minutes you were on mute, so then we had to kind of.
You just gonna call me out like that?
we had to run it back. We had to run it back.
I did not realize. I don't know
how
that happened. The issue is, believe it or not, I have a very short attention span. So if I'm still here at 3.5 hours and my eyes are not watering, I'm like, okay, this is good, but I know what's gonna happen next. Oh, Shelly said, "What a great evening listening." I'm glad y'all liked it. So I don't know. He might start up a stream. So I ain't gonna lie. If you go live, I will be over there. But my mouth hurt. I don't want to talk anymore.
Nah, you're good. No, I appreciate it. I'm not gonna hold you. I appreciate it. I know we went over, but I just really enjoyed great questions, and great support from the channel. I really, really appreciate it. So we definitely got to do it again, and we definitely got to do a stream where we're gonna have one of those. I tell I got some stories. I got some stories. So we're gonna get spiritual. We're gonna get spiritual. I don't know if they're ready.
Listen, I have yet to do. I did a brief video on the witchcraft and its influence within the Black community. I haven't done a whole lot of content on it, but I might.
Yeah, we can talk about it. I would like.
Man, we didn't even touch on the Breakfast Club part 2. I forgot. Well, I was trying to keep it centered on policing, but I do want to hear. Yeah, see, even they know me.
What they say? April having the house.
Yes, they know.
Hey, these lights get hot, you guys. I have to keep the AC on when I'm streaming because I will sweat.
Ain't the lights. It's me. Ain't nobody else. My husband's sitting over there just fine. It's me.
Well,
it is. It just happens, and it ain't.
Look at you. That's a fact. Well, yeah, we got it. We definitely got to do this again, because I can leave you guys with this because someone had brought up the whole mental health aspect of policing, and it wasn't until this job. Oh, I'll say this is like one of the only 2 jobs I've had, but in this profession, what I learned was that there's actually a spiritual component to mental health. At least that's what I've been seeing. And I have a lot of encounters with people who have been possessed.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm interested in
And
hearing about that.
but they were diagnosed with a mental health disorder. And in fact, I know for a fact that the majority of them were possessed. So then, over time, I was like, wow, I think our government is really going out their way to try to suppress anything that would acknowledge the Bible, right? So I'm
I
gonna
think a
leave y'all
lot
with
of
that little
these
nugget.
drugs, I think a lot of the drugs, I mean, if you're
They
familiar with
open
the
you up.
whole concept of pharmakia, and yeah, it's kind of like
Hmm.
opening people up
Yes,
to be
yes.
vulnerable to these kinds of
These
spiritual
spiritual
attacks.
attacks. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
a good show. And
All right, we'll set it up. We'll set it up.
yeah, you know how to reach me.
All right.
Pookie wants you. You know what? I might mention it to him to see. I might see if I can, swindle a ticket or two that's free to get him to see if he would want to come to that. I'll tell you. So
Oh yeah. That'll
yeah,
be
so
dope.
the G3 conference, that's one of the show's sponsors. It's September 21st through the 23rd. It is a Christian conference, and the theme this year is the sovereignty of God. I have several content creator friends that are going to be there. Vic, I'm sorry, Pookie, you going to be there? I think you might. I think we've talked and you said you were coming. But if you guys want to use my code, I'm unfocused, so I'm going to just tell you the code from the top of my head. It is what is my code? Is it G3ST? Oh gosh. T the standard I'm not even gonna lie. Y'all don't remember my discount code. But
Look, y'all,
I will
we hitting 4 hours, you guys. We're gonna hit 4 hours.
no we're not. You're gonna be there by
Marathon.
yourself.
we
It's not gonna happen.
we almost there. We almost there. We almost there.
You would go for I saw one of
You
your
see
streams
some
was like
mushrooms?
7 hours. Why
You
are
see
they so
mushrooms?
long?
Because we be getting it in like people be, what's so funny? People have a lot of real questions. And I think the disservice from the profession of law enforcement is that they do not come and have honest conversations with the people. They're like politicians. And it's usually people from the top that are answering these questions, but they're not the people doing the job. And they're not honest. Yeah, think about it. Anytime you see the police actually really answering questions, it's never from those who are really doing the work. It's the one of the top administrators, so, and they're not honest. At the end of the day, they're not really honest and transparent. And that's kind of why I like Vivek. He's just honest and transparent about the real issues. He's not afraid to just call it out.
Yeah, but Nathan, 7 hours worth of transparency,
Man,
like
we be going in. It's
that's
so
a
many that just
long
goes to show
time.
you it goes to show you how much of the disinformation has been put out as it relates to Black policing and just the culture in general. It's so much lie out here. It's just an overabundance of false information. It's gotten bad, and so there's a lot of work to be done, and it's slow growing. It's a slow steps growing these channels, boy.
Listen, it's hard work growing these
Hard
channels.
work.
God,
Hard
these
work.
people don't understand.
Listen.
I mean, and I mean, it's a relative term. You have some people that are doing this full time. It's hard to do it part time, and it's still hard to do it full time, especially if you're
Yes.
by yourself. It's very, very
Yes.
difficult. You kind of need support, and yeah. Listen,
After you get to a certain degree, yeah.
I don't think I'll ever do a 7-hour live stream. You couldn't pay me. Listen, and I talk a lot. I would run out of words at hour. Like now, I'm running out of words. I'm like, I don't know.
Nah, you never say never. Sometimes you can be on the topic, you got 1,000 people in, it's popping, and you just
I've never had 1,000 people, so I don't.
I maybe like twice by accident, but I was talking about something real controversial and people was just coming in. But yeah, that's rarity, very rare for me. One day I'm gonna get to that.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
It's not a sprint; it's a marathon. We're in it for the long haul. Right.
I'm getting tired though. I'm getting tired. They be wearing me out on my channel.
Do you have a regular creation schedule? Like you go live on certain days?
I used to, but unfortunately, because of my content is so specific, I try to connect my content with something that's actively taking place. Because unfortunately, I'm making content to one for everybody. I'm making content for everybody, but I also have a specific niche, which is towards the Black community. Unfortunately, our people sometimes we don't. We're very selective with what we want to receive and when we want to receive it. And sometimes we just want to eat a cheeseburger, and sometimes I have to put the medicine in the cheeseburger.
Wow.
And I could have a video about how to save your life from a disaster, and nobody's gonna watch it. So I have to sneak those things. Yeah, I have to sneak those gems in controversial topics that people we only want to hear what we feel like hearing in the moment. We don't necessarily always want to hear what we need to hear when we need to hear it.
So you're saying like we don't want to be challenged?
Black people want what we want when we feel like having it.
But that's not always helpful, expedient, or
But
realistic.
that's why we're stagnant, because if I can do a video right now telling you how to fix the police problems, Black people don't want to hear about it until they see a brother get shot by a white officer. It's not important to them in the moment. So it's unfortunately my channel is very based on what's actually taking place. We don't care about what's going on with police anymore because ain't nobody been shot. But the reality is this is an ongoing thing that needs to be fixed. Right. We care about what we care about when we feel like caring about it. We are very selective about the change that we want to see in our own community. That is why we are still stagnant. This is, again, like you said, this is a marathon. Black folks, no, it's a situationship. It ain't really a big deal until somebody makes it a big deal.
Well, it's an election year, so you're gonna have lots of content because I'm sure it's gonna be some unsuspecting Black folks that's gonna get shot by a white cop. Probably like now.
Exactly. And that's why we ignore all the other violence that's taking place in our communities, because it's not important. It's not important until celebrity says it's important. We dance by the tune of celebrities.
So shallow though. I'm shallow. Like, who are they? They don't live real regular lives like the rest of us.
I agree, but we exalt them, we honor them, we worship them, we idolize them. They are our leaders in some aspects. That's why these politicians, they influence them to influence us.
Right. So that's why you'll have like Cardi B sitting down with the then president candidate Joe Biden. I couldn't wrap my mind. Like somebody like me would never get an interview, but Cardi B.
A real activist or a real educated Black person, educated in the areas of economics and politics, could never get an interview like that, because they would really challenge them on real issues that they need to be focused on to support America, and also support issues that are related to the Black community. So you get Cardi B. And same reason why Charlemagne didn't challenge Biden when he disrespected him and Black people with that statement. He should have drug him through the mud behind that, and he didn't. He knows who, again, it just goes back to what I said earlier. We're politically ignorant.
I have a hard time believing he's that politically ignorant. I have a hard time believing the whole I'm not a Democrat or Republican. Dude, stop playing.
Yeah. You're whoever they pay you to be. You're whoever they pay you to be. It's us, the people listening, that are politically ignorant. No, he has a job. That's his job. That's why the Democrats would go to the churches and try to to bargain with the church leaders because they knew that the church leaders had the voice of the Black people. That's why they did that. So what's that pastor you said earlier who's over New Birth? Even the one Brian, he's politically bought. The one before him was politically bought, and I worked during the time where he was actually over that church. I can't think of his name over New Birth.
Bishop Long, New Birth.
Bishop Long. Jesus Christ, that guy. Okay, so I got a story about that. I'll tell you the next one. Because we investigated that case.
I used to go there.
Well, I was working in DeKalb when he was working. When he was
I was a Cino. I was a churchian. I was a Christian in name only.
I know.
I did not know the Lord.
Yeah.
But that was my church from 97 to 2003. Yeah, from 97 to 2003. So by the time
you left before.
Right, by the time the scandal hit, I was gone. But I was still living in DeKalb, around the corner from there. I was still living close by. That was a mess.
Yeah,
I got stories with that too.
Okay.
We'll have to talk offline about that one.
Yeah. The brother, he gone, so bless his heart.
Right.
Wow.
This world is way too small.
Ain't it though? Yeah. I started in 2006, and so when all that stuff was going on, it was actually, we investigated that. And so all that stuff that came out, I remember talking to people was like, well, he actually didn't commit a crime because everybody's of age. You know what I mean?
Right. You're like, wait, am I hearing this right? Y'all just gonna explain it away? They always explain it away. The writing could be on the wall.
When you're grown, you're grown.
Listen, Long had DeKalb County PD in his back pocket. Anytime you get a phone call, you make a phone call like, I need an exit off of 20 to go to Woodrow Road. Like, a lot of people don't know that whole I-20 expansion, diverting traffic to the road where New Birth is. Bishop Long was like, I need that.
It was for New Birth. Yep.
And it happened.
Yeah. And again, and that just goes back to what we said earlier, how corruption has nothing to do with people being white, has everything with a person's heart. Because all those people in charge during that time in DeKalb, when I worked, everybody was Black. From the CEO,
the sheriff.
The sheriff. It was all Black everything. Yep. All Black everything. School board, all that. Crime high, drama, people stealing money. Heck, the Stonecrest Mall. I mean, not Stonecrest, but Stonecrest. The mayor
city of Stonecrest. He in jail now. He in prison.
He in prison. The feds got him. And he's Black. And what was he doing? Stealing money. So taking COVID money. So again, it's like we got to stop looking at skin color and start looking at behavior. At the end of the day.
I was living in, before it was the city of Stonecrest and it was just Lithonia. I remember, and I was just like, I remember him when he used to own the amphitheater and was doing all, and I was like, yeah, I see you pimping.
Yeah. Money, man.
We got a lot of corruption here. A lot of corruption. DeKalb is still corrupt.
Yeah. People love money.
People just don't, they have no idea how bad it really is. But anyway.
They don't see it. That's why I try to talk and kind of give them a better understanding, because to them, they just look at, oh, it's white, it's racism, it's this. No, a lot of this stuff is greed. You'd be surprised how much racism doesn't even impact Black lives. I think Black people don't even realize how much it doesn't have an impact, because a lot of the average Black person is living in all Black communities run by Black folks. Yep. So ain't no racism in that. It's pure greed and corruption.
It's money.
So
I agree. Well, thank you, Nathan. I am going to lead us out with, I guess, a commercial, and then I'll end the stream. And if you just want to stay behind for a couple of moments and we can kind of wrap up and stuff, that would be great. Okay. You guys, I love you. I'm hot. I'm dehydrated.
4 hours.
Did it? Oh gosh, we almost made it. I'm off. I am out. You take this to your channel and y'all have fun over there. You guys, grace and peace.
God is sovereign over everything. He is sovereign over the entire universe. He is sovereign over nature. He literally has created everything that exists out of nothing.
It is the doctrine of sovereign election that empowers and ignites missions, and it is the doctrine of sovereign election that guarantees the success of missions around the world.
We will not build the church according to the changing whims of an ungodly culture. We will change that ungodly culture by the power of the immutable gospel.
All I have is God wrapped himself in flesh, died on a cross, nailed my sin thereto, was placed in the grave, rose again on the third day, ascended to the right hand of the Father, and is there making intercession for me until such time as my salvation is completed and he takes me home.
The more they see, the more they will love him. Stop giving them all this silly fodder and life principles and lay before them. Live your life in solitude, crying out to God. Live your life on your knees. Live your life with your Bibles torn asunder. Live your life for the people of God to be able to present to them the beauty of what he is, the glory of his cross.
There is no such thing as Mother Nature. God rules and reigns over everything. There's not a leaf that falls from a tree that God did not call it to fall at that very moment. God is in control of every single thing, meticulously ruling over the entire universe. Join us for the 2023 G3 National Conference on the Sovereignty of God.